Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Castaway Anime. I'm Neon Manta,
And I'm Crunchy Bagels.
and today we ain't just living on the edge, we're running on the edge with Cyberpunk Edgerunners.
Hell yeah. So this is the big new show that's coming out. Everyone's talking about it. Although I guess by the time we release this, it may have already... I guess people won't have forgotten about it, but it probably won't be as hot and spicy as it is right now. It's making the rounds. Literally the day after, either the day of or the day after it came out, I saw Critical make a video on it, and I didn't watch it because I didn't want to be spoiled, but it's like, even YouTubers who are, to be fair, are anime fans, but who aren't as deeply entrenched in the community, are making videos like a day of, day after. It is that big of a show.
Yeah, it's the big collaboration between CD Projekt Red and Trigger for Netflix, based on the 2020 release of Cyberpunk 2077, which, if you recall, was a disaster at launch.
Even I, not so familiar with the gaming community, still heard all the uproar about Cyberpunk 2077 being completely broken and unplayable at launch. And you were telling me earlier today about how like they literally recalled the game from was it shelves or was it like the online
not
version?
Physical shelves. It was the digital version on the PlayStation Store platform. Sony literally had to be like, yeah, no, the backlash is like too much. We have to literally pull this game off the shelf, and that's never been done before.
Well,
there's some like
wasn't it
dog-ass
literally
unfinished games.
Yeah, wasn't it literally unplayable?
On the PlayStation Store.
Yeah,
yeah, it was. You could beat the game, but it was like so blatantly unfinished and buggy and fucked up that even Sony was like, yeah, no, we straight up cannot sell this on our platform.
Well, I guess this is a little bit of an aside, but I remember that people were saying like it can't run on their PlayStation. That it literally crashes every few seconds.
That was part of the reason. If you had like a vanilla base PS4 and not a Pro or a PS5, then or a really good PC, then you straight up would not be able to run it. You'd be hitching frame rates, shitty ass resolutions. It was a total shit show. Your PS4 would like kill itself if it tried to run CD Projekt Red.
Or at best, it would want to kill itself.
Yeah, it would form sentience and then beg for death.
Pretty much. But this show clearly was not a disaster at launch. And in fact, it's the hot new shit. It's got an 8.7 on Mal and 85% on AniList. It is a very, very well-received show.
Yeah, it's got people buzzing. Everyone flocked to watch it immediately, and it seems like it's been paying off for all parties involved. And no small controversy either, but we'll get back to that.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
And remember, if you enjoyed the podcast, please be sure to hit the like button, head on down to the comments to let us know what you think of the show, and finally, subscribe to the channel for more episodes of Castaway Anime and other videos.
Oh, David, my man, what's going on? Everything good?
Yeah.
What's up, Choom? You need something?
Yeah. Got this package here from Maine. Is Pilar here?
Ugh. Yo, bro, it's for you!
He's your brother.
Maine sent you something. Come get it.
Fucking finally!
Bro, that it for today?
Yeah, fuck off! And Becca, tip him on his way out!
He's your errand boy. Work it over yourself, cheap ass!
That's a tip!
David, you're fucking adorable.
Huh?
See you soon, Dimples.
Fuck, there was something I was gonna say. Oh yeah, I wonder if Studio Trigger being basically paid, I reckon they were paid by Studio Projekt Red, I think it's called, to make this anime, and I reckon that the extra money from that is part of what helps them.
I'm not 100% sure if they got paid like directly from Projekt Red or if they just went into like a business agreement together for Netflix.
That is possible now that you mention it. But
Yeah, I'm thinking that that's more of the case, and that as we've seen from news stories related to the show, that both studios were deeply entrenched with one another during the production process. You could see even in the opening credits, there's a bunch of CD Projekt Red names on the board, in almost as many as the Trigger staffers.
well, I have not been keeping up with the news related to this show, so yeah, you definitely have more perspective than me on that particular front.
Yeah, see, the crazy thing about this show is that I don't know if you'll remember, but this was actually announced back in 2020 before the game even came out.
I do not remember. I was not paying attention to that.
Yeah, it got people's heads turning, even in the anime community, being like, wait, hold up, there's going to be a licensed anime based off of a non-Japanese video game. I was gonna say Western, but CD Projekt Red is based in Poland, I'm pretty sure. I'll fact check this in a second so I don't get lambasted. And not only that, it ain't getting picked up by no, bottom barrel dime a dozen studio. It's motherfucking Trigger, directed by motherfucking Hiroyuki Imaishi himself. And this is a big deal.
On the topic of Studio Trigger, this is, I think, my first Trigger show other than the first 2 episodes of Kill la Kill, which that was literally like my second anime. I had no taste then. I dropped it because I was an idiot. I'm sure Oh, actually, I just remembered. Technically, I have also seen the first episode of Inferno Cop, so I'm watching the top tier Trigger shows.
I mean, Inferno Cop is the best Trigger show, so... I was right, by the way. CD Projekt Red is Polish.
All right. And so I am relatively unfamiliar with this studio's work other than, hearing all about it
Their
and
profile.
knowing. Yeah, I know all the shows.
Did you not watch Promare?
No, I did not watch Promare.
Damn. So, I'm surprised that of all the anime you've seen, the only Trigger ones that you've at least dabbled in a little are Kill la Kill and Inferno Cop, which Kill la Kill is believable because that's just their biggest show, but not even stuff like Kisniver BNA, the Gridman or Dynazion shows.
I know BNA was really big, and I know Vlusky really likes it, but I mean, personally, I was not too invested in watching it.
Did you drop BNA?
No, I didn't drop it. I didn't watch any of it.
Too furry bait for you?
That wasn't even the issue. I just didn't feel like watching it. I don't really know much about the show, honestly.
What about Little Witch Academia?
I've heard a lot about that, and I'm sure I would absolutely love it if I saw it. I just have not gotten around to it.
That is surprising me. Trigger is if Kyoto Animation is the best traditional anime studio, if you picture the platonic ideal of anime, I would say Kyoto is at the top of making the most beautiful, conventional looking anime. And if you want to talk about anime as this wild out there animation medium, if you want to get experimental and crazy, Trigger is towering above the rest.
Well, you say that, but there's Studio Shaft, which is incredibly stylistic and, well, not anymore, but Studio Shaft in their prime. Let's put it that way. There has to be an asterisk.
I'm gonna keep it 100 with you, dog. Even though I am not overly familiar with Shaft's filmography, Trigger. When you've seen a Trigger show, you're yeah, this shit go crazy.
To be fair, the directing and animation are completely wacky. And on that note, all right, since you seem to be more familiar with Studio Trigger's work, I want to ask you, are all of their shows this off the walls and fast paced? Is it the same general feel, tone, and specifically the pacing, I'm wondering? Is it always this fast?
Outside of the All right, yes, with an asterisk. And before we dive into that more, I want to preface the podcast with this. Instead of going through episode by episode how we usually do, I wanted to format it in a spoiler-free and then spoiler discussion.
Okay, that
So
is
we'll start
interesting.
we'll start here with the no spoilers, because now we're talking about the entire show instead of like a number of episodes that we expect to have already seen when they watch the podcast. But now that we're talking about the whole show, and don't like give a shit about well, actually no, we do give a shit about spoiling it, unlike fucking High Guardian Spice, which is like the last time we watched the show in its entirety and then did a podcast episode on it. So this will be spoiler free here, and then we'll go into spoilers later.
All right, sounds fair
And
enough
there'll
to
be
me.
time codes in the description that you'll be able to see on the YouTube page.
Because this is certainly no High Guardian Spice. Even if
No,
some of
this
the
is,
things I have to say are spicy.
So to answer your question of all trigger shows usually this fast paced and this bombastic? Yes, but with an asterisk. They do tend to have this level of off the wall, like crazy ass concepts and visualizations through the animation medium, and are very. Trigger's got a lot of spunk. They got a lot of spunk in the trunk. And this one is the first time that they've let it like all hang out in, I'd say, ever. The only two times I can compare this to that even come remotely close are Kill la Kill, and while not technically Trigger, this is also an Imaishi
I know what you're
project.
gonna
This is-
say. Gurren Lagann,
Yeah,
isn't it?
No, I was gonna say Penny and Stocking.
Oh, okay.
Although there are some Gurren Lagann aspects in here, but yeah, Penny and Stocking was under the Gainax umbrella before Trigger was formed, and this is if you took the sexualization of Penny and Stocking and the violence of Kill la Kill, and I suppose also the sexualization of Kill la Kill, and you toned up the violence to like the hyper violence, because there are violent moments in both shows, but not to the degree of this show. Like this is the fucking hyper violent. You get detailed visual splatters of people's heads and bodies getting chunked and atomized, whereas in something like Kill la Kill, someone will just get their arm cut off, or maybe sometimes their heart ripped out. But it's in like a cool. Like in Kill la Kill, when someone gets their heart ripped out, they like plunge in, grab it, and rip it out. It's also it's kind of, for lack of a better word, beautiful to watch, and also, for another lack of a better word, epic, because there's a big spray of blood, and you like the characters got the other character's heart in their hand, but it's not like you don't see like the sinews, and like it's not a hyper realistic depiction of getting your heart ripped out. It's more of like a visual symbolization to consolidate the term. Whereas if someone got their heart ripped out in this show, they'd have all of their sinews attached. They'd probably like shit and piss blood and puke blood at the same time while it happens. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You watch the show.
Yeah, I get exactly what you're talking about. The gore in this show is definitely a lot more detailed compared to most shows. That is definitely a thing. I want to bring it back to
that's the Netflix special at work, because since they don't got to worry about TV censors, they don't got to worry about toning shit down. This is Trigger, unhinged, uncensored, unfiltered, unrated, and uncut.
I want to bring it back specifically to the pacing, though. Like, to draw what I think is the most direct comparison, is Kill la Kill this fast-paced?
Well, I also gotta disclose myself saying I've only seen the first, I think 4 episodes of Kill la Kill. And from what I remember, the pacing is pretty similar. And I wouldn't necessarily call Edgerunners a 100% fast-paced show. I think the pacing is almost perfect. I wish there were a few maybe like an episode or two more that we could dedicate to fleshing out the side characters.
I'm so
that
glad we
way
agree on
when-
that point, Neon. I'm so glad. I
Yeah,
feel
so-
vindicated.
Yeah, we'll get this out of the way now. This ain't a masterpiece, but it's a good ass fucking show.
Neon, all right, give me a number, right? Let's start the actual discussion of the show. Give me a number.
Oh,
I've been hyping it up for
All right,
too
well,
long.
we'll slap the dick on the table now, I guess. I would give this show an 8 out of 10.
I am bouncing between a 4 and a 5. Genuinely.
What the fuck? You didn't like it?
No, I don't like it. And the thing is, I want to like it so bad because I love the style. You know, it's animated fucking fantastically. There is like genuinely creative directing here. It is so much like on a technical level and on the amount of ideas it is juggling. It is so far above your usual schlock. But in terms of enjoyability, it's like, I just don't like it. It keeps on doing things that I mean, the main thing is the pacing, and we'll get to that, but like, it's so close to being something that I can engross myself in and be like, this is the greatest shit ever. And for the first episode or two, I was like, yeah, this is vibin'. But then it keeps on going on, and it's like, well, fuck, I'm no longer vibing. What happened? So that is my cursory review of this show before we
I
plunge
guess
in.
we'll explore it as we go on, but you're on thin ice, mister.
I think this is the first time we've disagreed this hard about a show.
Yeah, outside of seasonals, and those are just impressions, yeah, I think this is the first time we've disagreed on, like, coming out of a show and being like, wow, that was great, wow, that was not very good.
See, it's like, that's the thing about this show. It makes me feel so conflicted inside, because it's like, this should be, I mean, granted, it's like the super hyper actiony, you know, tons of gore and visceral violence, and it's like, well, that doesn't do anything for me. But in terms of like it just being a rock solid foundation for a show and, you know, being technically good, it's like, well, I should at least be able to enjoy myself while watching this show. But while I was watching it, I couldn't stop thinking about the other seasonals that are mayhaps a little less well regarded. Like, I can't believe I'm saying this, but Lycoris Recoil, since that was the most recent show before this I had seen for the podcast, I kept on being like, fuck, maybe I do like that show. I want to go back to watching that. I loved that in comparison. You know, that was fun. I had fun watching that and discussing it with you. And this is like, well, I'm not having fun, and I'm sad for that.
I don't even know where to begin to respond with that. When I was watching Edgerunners, no other show was allowed to creep into my thoughts because I was too busy reaching for slamming my mouse for the play next episode button. Even when it was goddamn 4 a.m, and I was like, well, I can't stop watching. I gotta see what happens next.
I wish I was like that. Like, I should be like that, but I'm not, and it makes me depresso espresso. So I guess we can just go into it. Trying to think whether we should start with my criticisms or your praises. You decide.
Well, before we dive into that, I wanted to ask, did you go for the dub or the sub?
Sub.
Okay, I chose the dub, which I don't typically do for non-shonen anime. The only times I choose the dub are for shonens, or if I'm going to see a anime movie in theaters. I'll typically, if the option is available, I'll spring for the dub because I just prefer hearing the dialogue instead of having to scan my eyes on a theater screen. On like a computer screen or a TV screen at home, it's more palatable because I'm able to get like the full field of view with the full screen within my field of view, so I don't have to like keep moving my eyes to the center frame where all of the important stuff of the show is happening, and then to the bottom to read the subtitles. But on a movie screen, I have to be like, I have to put more of an effort in because there's a lot more space to cover.
Yeah, I get that. And for something as visual as this show, I can see why having the dub would be a bit of an advantage. Because there is it is constant visual stuff happening. So I imagine
there's a lot of audio visual
Yeah.
stimuli going on in the show, which I think is very much to its benefit considering the aesthetic and the themes of it.
Yeah, that is I presume the advantage of Studio Trigger's bombastic off the wall style, which is that it's
Yeah,
constant stimuli.
literally no other studio could, I can imagine, even coming close to pulling something like this off. Like even KyoAni, which is one of, if not probably my favorite anime studio ever, I cannot imagine them remotely, even in the slightest, doing this show.
I definitely agree. How would you rate the dub, by the way? Was the dub a dub?
The dub so big I had to go to the moon to see it to get my full view of it. This is, and I know it's popular. It's a popular meme to shit on most anime dubs nowadays because there's been a bit of a oversaturation problem with simuldubbing as opposed to simulcasting, where all you gotta do to simulcast is just translate the show, make sure the subtitles are good, accurate, and are void of grammatical and spelling errors, and then pop it online. But with a dub, you gotta make sure that your translated script is both accurate to the source material, and also because you're translating it from one language to another, there's some cultural things that you just can't really avoid, so you have to figure out how to best weave, or maybe even have to dissect them, maybe remove them from the narrative or the dialogue to make it more palatable for an international audience. But for this is, and I said this, I'm going to go out there and say it. I don't care how much flack I get for this. This is one of the best dubs ever. Like, full stop.
God damn.
I've heard a lot of there are a lot of good anime dubs out there. Dragon Ball Z, Cowboy Bebop, the Ghibli dubs. This is up there.
I did not watch it dubbed, so I can't say anything about that. The sub actors seems to do a pretty damn good job, but on the note of spelling errors, I actually did notice a few in the subtitles, or at least what I thought were spelling errors. I don't have any written down.
The Netflix intern is not getting his breadcrumbs tonight.
Oh no. But yeah, maybe I was just being dyslexic or something, but I could have sworn there were a couple typos in there.
I mean, that's not necessarily the show's fault. That's more of that's Netflix's fault.
Yeah, I'm not gonna blame the show for it. It's not a big deal. Like, oh, you just go past it and know, like, oh, that's what they're actually saying. But it's like, no, it's there. I might as well mention it.
Let me put into perspective how good this dub is. Are you familiar with who Giancarlo Esposito is?
No.
Do you know Gus Fring from Breaking Bad?
Nope.
Are you familiar with
Whatever
surely
it
you've
is.
seen a picture of him.
I imagine I have, but
He's the
I'd probably recognize him if you sent a picture here. What was his name? Gus Fringo?
Gus Fring. Just type in Gus space Fring, and then if you see a picture of him, you'll know. I think he's in the meme of like we are
okay.
not the same.
I've seen that guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. He's commonly praised for his villain roles. Like a lot of people say he has the best performance in Breaking Bad. He plays a character in The Boys who is pretty much the same character as the guy who plays in Breaking Bad. Delivers a great performance. Even though the game is shit, he was the villain in Far Cry 6, and his performance is like the highlight of that game. And he voiced Faraday in this dub, and it's another banger performance.
That is a big actor to be getting into an anime dub. But
yeah, like that's the Netflix. That's the power of Netflix, baby. They were an equal draw of like anime voice actors and also guys like Giancarlo who are not in the anime sphere, but they were like, you know, it would be a good fit for this role. This Hollywood celebrity. Let's get him in here. David also had a really good performance with Zach Aguilar. I think.
Go ahead.
Oh, what'd you say?
I was just gonna say I'm starting to understand why this anime was so hyped upon release.
I mean, yeah, when people saw the dub cast, Giancarlo did turn some heads. Like, what? Yo, hey, yo, they got him. They got Gus. And Zach Aguilar, I'm pretty positive he did Tanjiro's voice from the Demon Slayer dub, which I remember being basic, like bare minimum acceptable, but Zach fucking knocked it out of the park with David. I almost thought it was Johnny Young Bosch at first with how much it sounded like Ichigo from Bleach.
I watched sub for Bleach too, so I didn't get to experience that. I don't remember any standout sub performances, but I remember all being passable. It's not obviously bad voice acting.
Yeah, there's so many good fucking performances. David's voice is great. Faraday, Lucy's voice is great. Main, Kiwi, Rebecca. So just a lot of good performances across the board. Even David's mother, Gloria, who's only in there for one episode, I remember having a great voice. I could have fucking sworn that it was the voice actor for Luz's mom from the Owl House because of how similar they sound.
I'm remembering back to Luz's mom during the during the Owl House.
She was only in the first episode.
Yeah, I remember the voice. It's hard to imagine.
Yeah, granted, they're both Hispanic moms, so maybe I'm just being racist when I say they sound similar. But I could have swore I had to like pause the episode and be like, was she on this? But no, it was a different actress.
Yeah, I'm trying to imagine the Hispanic accent with that character. Because, I mean, obviously when it's the Japanese voice actor, they just have, I mean, at least as far as I could tell, just a Japanese accent.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure all the guys they got were Japanese for their performances in the sub.
Yeah. I didn't notice anyone that obviously wasn't, at least.
I remember I watched some sub clips and I remember Rebecca having a pretty good performance.
I did like Rebecca's performance. Her voice actor does a good job at capturing that character. And on that note, Rebecca is also, at least seems to be one of the fan favorites thus far. And it's not like I don't get it, but we'll get more into that later.
Yeah, if I were to pick a mascot character for the show, she would definitely fit the bill.
I mean, she sort of captures like that bombastic swagger that the entire show's directing style, and I guess the directing style of Studio Trigger on the whole, has. She's constantly like yelling and screaming and kicking people when they do
things
something
and blowing things up.
I remember the one scene. Actually, that might be counted as a spoiler, so I guess we'll wait for that.
What episode was it in?
I think 4.
Was it the one where we see her just like talking with David, or is it the thing that happens later in that episode?
It is the thing that happens later in that episode.
Yeah, okay, that's a spoiler.
All right, I'll leave that out then, but good moment for people who know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. We'll get to that when we get to that. But yeah, okay, so now let's dive into the actual show itself. I want to hear, let's start with your criticism of the show. What is holding Edgerunners back in your mind?
It doesn't have an off button. And I know that sounds kind of like a weird complaint, but let me explain what I actually mean by that, which is that it's constantly going, but to an extent that is nauseating. And for an example of what I mean, like, all right, so the show's soundtrack, it's bopping. All of these songs are fire. But
dude, literally, I was waiting for an opportunity to like plug this in. Also, one of the best soundtracks I've ever heard in an anime.
it is a bopping soundtrack, and in the first episode, as he goes out of his house for the first time, and we see him walking through the slums, and that song comes on. I call it in my head the slums song. I don't actually know what it's called, but
Yeah, dude. When I after this podcast is done, I'm like I'm praying that they've already got the soundtrack to the show on digital stores because I need to get my hands on that shit.
yeah, that is. There are at least 2 songs I remember being like, yeah, I would put that on my playlist. These are really fucking fire songs, and the rest are pretty solid. But my problem,
Bro, the opening song. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
I agree with this, so I want to talk about that too.
Yeah, dude, This Fire by Franz Ferdinand, which was, if I got my facts here straight, this is a song from 2004.
That is old. I mean, I guess not super old.
I was
but...
surprised. At first I thought it was just like they commissioned it for the show, but then I looked into it, and yeah, it's from this I'm pretty sure they're a Polish band. The band's called Franz Ferdinand. I don't want to be spreading false information on the internet. Let's see. Scottish. They're a Scottish rock band. So I was kind of close. They're European.
Yeah, I got the right continent. It is a very fire song. I will definitely... I just put it on my watch later. I need to listen to it some more. I've got the full version on watch later.
Yeah, like, dude, straight up after this podcast, I am buying that song and getting it on my phone immediately.
I do not blame you whatsoever. It is a fire song.
Get it?
Fuck you.
Fuck Was that
you.
Intentional? Did you not
That
realize
wasn't intentional.
He's gonna burn this city.
Oh my god. Okay, so going back to my criticisms of the soundtrack, which is that, it's bopping, but it has one mode, which is, I mean, okay, there is at least one sort of emotional, it's still the same sort of style and sound, but it is sort of an emotionally resonant tune. So I guess they do have one song that is meant for like some of the sadder scenes, but like, I'm trying to find my exact note. All right, so here it is. In episode 1, I guess this is, are you okay with me talking about a specific event in episode 1?
Oh yeah, that nothing that happens in episode 1 can be constituted a spoiler.
All right. So him and his mom are having an emotional talk in the car. All right, I guess I don't actually need to talk that specifically about it anyway, but they're talking in the car, and she's like, I have high hopes for you, son. You're supposed to, ascend the corporate ladder, get yourself a good job. You have a smart head on your shoulders, son. You're gonna be good, man. All right? Just live up to my expectations of who you want to be because, you can do this, son. Come on. And it's like this sort of boppin', fast-paced EDM soundtrack. When I would imagine this scene having either no soundtrack or a slower-paced, more emotional one. Maybe not one that's like heart rot, because that would just feel overbearing. It would feel like the show, if it was like the super melodramatic emotional piece, it would feel like the show was going over, like basically going overboard, being like beating you over the head with what you're supposed to feel. But having the boppin' EDM soundtrack isn't a fit, it isn't a good fit for this scene. Like, I know we're not invested enough in the characters to really cry for them yet, but you should at least try. Like, I can feel for this character if you put on the right song. But since you have the wrong song, all I'm thinking is, why the fuck didn't you change the song? Like, just turn up, like, if you don't have the emotional resonant song in your soundtrack, just don't have a soundtrack. Like, just turn off the song for that one scene. It's not that hard. And that just kept on bugging me when there are multiple times in the show like this. I have like literally 3 different times of this in my notes. I'd have to dig them out, but 3 times where it was like supposed to be an emotionally resonant, at least ish scene, something that I would imagine being, not having bopping EDM soundtracks in the background, but they have the same fucking song, like the same songs as what you'd expect in like the more upbeat scenes. And it's like, well, what the fuck? I want to love this soundtrack, but you're misusing it. Like, just save this for the scenes where it fits, and you're good.
I'm gonna keep it 100. I cannot remember. I remember there being a song like playing during the episode 1 car ride scene. I don't remember it being a problem though. I was definitely engrossed in the scene. It was definitely more so what the characters were saying rather than like the music getting me to pay attention. So I think maybe it was just there. Maybe I'd have to watch it again to remember what kind of tone it was setting. But I don't remember it taking me out of the experience at all. On the subject of the song like songs being placed in inappropriate times, I want to say that there was one time where I was like, this is a strange time to be playing this song. I can't fucking remember what it is, though.
I probably have it in my notes somewhere, but I'd have to dig that up because I have a lot of notes. And, God, I should start bolding the important stuff.
Yeah, I should.
Because a lot of
too,
this was me being like, okay, so is this what happens? Oh, no. They confirmed that it isn't that case like 5 minutes later. So, fuck, if I want to find that scene, I'm going to have to dig. But I know I know you're right, because I took notes every single time I recognized that it was happening, that the song was completely unfitting.
I want to say that when it happened, someone was... It was either when David was going into sicko mode with his implant, or it was, I think, Maine doing a thing that was like, can't say what it is because no spoilers, but it was a thing that was so crazy to the point where it was like, hey, maybe this like kind of strange upbeat chirpy tune isn't what we should be playing for this moment. Maybe something a little more heavy metal. It was almost it was like too poppy.
About. Yeah.
It was like, I think the thought that came to mind was that it was too poppy.
I didn't have that specific note, but I do remember what you're talking about.
I think that if I am to be charitable, I think what they're going for is that they're playing up how, loud and suffocating, that's the word I'm thinking of, suffocating Night City is, and this cyber dystopia that it like feels inappropriate. Like the whole theme of the show is losing your humanity to these to this cyber future, in both literally and metaphorically, in the sense of, people are doing all this weird degen shit. Degen shit is like the norm now. If you saw a dude watching VR porn with a fucking pocket pussy strapped to their dick on the sidewalk in public, you get them arrested on site. You just walk by him and it's like, I mean, people are like, yeah, it's gross, but it's not my business. It's a Wednesday, bro. And like that's just the kind of thing that happens. We see people getting chunked and atomized, turn into blood sprays on the ground, and no one has like oh god, he's like fucking yeah, I'm having a mental breakdown. Like they'll get angry about it, but they don't like treat it as like this world-shattering event.
On that note, I want to talk about how much I absolutely love the scene in episode 1 where it's just David walking through the city. And, like, it's almost comical how fucked everything is. He starts off in the slums, jumps down from, like, this high ledge. So, clearly infrastructure ain't good here. at least in this part of town. You gotta
don't
jump
think
off
it's
from like this
necessarily-
high.
I don't think I think he does that by choice though.
It could
I
be a
think just because
choice
it's a
thing.
shortcut. Because
That could be
'cause
the
he
case.
he specifically lands on garbage bags to cushion his fall.
Yeah, he does do that. So maybe you're right. But anyway, he's going through the slums, this like, people just hanging around, looking not like the nicest people, looking pretty shady, run down, everything
A lot of
around
poor, a
here.
lot of shady looking people,
Yeah,
a lot
like,
of
trash
guys
everywhere.
having VR porn orgasms on the sidewalk and throwing up over a railing because they were day drinking.
Yep. And
And
then
it's just like, yep,
there's
business
like
as usual.
the two things that have stuck with me though is when he was walking down the street and he turns his head, there's just a giant blood splatter, just a giant fuck off blood splatter. And he just like he acknowledges it, but he doesn't freak out or anything. He's just like, "Oh, that happens. Okay, moving on."
Yeah.
He's a little
Yeah,
mopey
it
about
was-
it, but it's not like he's
it was the-
freaking out.
Yeah, it's the blood splatter from the opening of the show where some soldier dude, he's going cyber psycho, which is when you get too many cybernetic implants and it fucks with your mind too much and you start losing your sanity and you just go absolute Babarusa and you start killing and you just become this unhinged hyper violent maniac and you got to get put down by like the super duper pooper scooper cyber police.
Yeah.
And it's that guy who gets turned into a blood splatter on the ground. And yet in this city of like all this debauchery and sin, like they'll even though they are the professionals, they are like the government ordered professionals that clean up the cyber psychos and the criminals. They'll turn this guy into a blood splatter, but they will not immediately dispatch a team to like clean up a cleanup crew to be like, all right, let's get this area, like make it look like there was not a homicidal maniac in public just now, or at least cover it up as much as possible. Nah, the blood sweat, we can leave that over there. We can do that.
I mean, yeah,
tomorrow.
everyone's just used to it at this point. The other shot that stuck with me is that like he's on the train, or I guess the future train, because the rails are above it, and he's looking out the window, and there's just a burning skyscraper. And no big deal, just something that happens here. Yeah, arson attacks just every day.
I will say, while we're talking about that opening scene, there's this really cool thing that happens like in between the opening shootout, which is fucking banger, by the way. Like sets the tone perfectly for what kind of show you're in for. And the walk David takes to school. The phone calls in this show play out the same way that the phone calls in the game do, where they'll have the name and the call thing pop up in the corner, and then the text will appear. And I thought that was a really cool touch.
I haven't seen any footage. Well, okay, I've seen some footage from the game, but not enough to recognize that. But even just seeing that was like, that's probably how it is from the game. That looks like something from a game interface. They probably took it straight from
good.
that.
That's good attention to detail, where even like someone like you, who is not too familiar with the game, and not much of a gamer, is able to be like, yeah, that's probably from the video game.
Yeah, I wasn't
That's how you
100%
make
on
a
it,
good-
but it was my pet theory, and I was vindicated.
That's how you make a good adaptation.
Fuck, we got really sidetracked, or at least I got
you-
sidetracked from the point I was trying to make. But it's okay,
so
because
you
this
were
is all important stuff.
Yeah, you were your first complaint was that the soundtrack was inappropriate. Then you were going on about how David, you liked the scene of David walking to school, all the detail.
Yeah. So I guess going back to the soundtrack, I do like the soundtrack, but I don't like how like every song seems to have, or at least it's damn near every song. I'm not sure. I know there's at least one song
There
that doesn't
is
have
a
this. But
super abundance of insert songs. You're not
Yes.
wrong in thinking there are a lot
it's
of
annoying.
those.
Like I'm going to. Okay, you say that, and then I'm gonna make a point.
Okay, I was gonna say, if they were bad songs, I would be annoyed, but all of them slap.
Okay, So when I think of how an insert song is traditionally used, right? It's when you want to, hype up the emotions for a special moment. So the one that comes to mind because it's recent is Yofukashi no Uta episode 6. It is after Nazuna and Ko have had this, sort of an argument-ish where Ko's like, oh, I don't want you, I don't want those guys picking you up, you're my girl. And she's like, stop worrying. And then she takes him, flying through the sky to the school pool. And, she is like, hey, it has a different vibe at night. And without the insert song, this would be a fine scene, it's fine. But with the insert song, I don't know exactly what it's called, but I know it's a Creepy Nuts song. The same guy who did the OP and ED. With that song, it has more of like, no, it feels more resonant than it really ought to be. Like, what's happening isn't all that special. It's a good scene, don't get me wrong, but it's not, a top tier peak Kino. But with the song, it starts to feel like maybe, oh, this is top tier peak Kino, even if it isn't really. But, just for a moment, the song can get you in that mood, and it, really elevates the scene. Here, it's constant. And if you like those sort of songs, hey, I can't, I can't disagree. Like, I can't argue against you if you say that. If you just say, like, hey, I like that all the songs in this show have vocals. I like them. They're my kind of jam. I like these jamming songs in the background while characters talk. All right, if that's your argument, I can't take that away from you. I wish there were just more instrumental songs. I wish the insert songs still felt like insert songs. But now it's just like, this is the show's OST. The show's OST is like,
What's wrong
at
with
least,
that?
I mean, yeah, that can be your point. But to me, it feels like overkill. Like, it's part of what makes the show, at least to me, feel like nauseating to watch. To where it's like constantly, and now there's vocals in the background just jamming it up, and it's like, well, they're just talking. I don't want to, like, you can have a jamming song while they're just talking and, saying ordinary stuff, but it's like, I want it to chill, at least occasionally. Like, I get being bombastic. What I don't get is being continuously, constantly trying to be bombastic to the point where you can't just have a normal fucking song. Like, just have just have an instrumental song. Just have a more chilled out instrumental. Don't always be bopping.
I think I'm getting what you're putting down. I think like what you're trying to say is that you wish there was a little more ambiance to some of the soundtrack instead of just the nonstop vocal tracks.
Yes,
to give
absolutely.
a little more. To give a little more personality. Well, not to say that the insert songs don't give personality to the show. They do that greatly. But, there's something to be said about, like firefly. Oh, well, yeah, not fireflies. Grasshoppers and crickets and, the whooshing of the wind and maybe some, like, light instrumentals to a place to, like, could lend it some ambiance. Like, I'm thinking of one of the best ambiance based soundtracks in gaming is the first Jak and Daxter game, where it was the tracks themselves are not like too memorable. You're not like gonna put them on your playlist and be like, oh yeah, I'm jamming out. But they lend to the atmosphere of the open world, which I think was to its benefit, because the thing about Jak and Daxter on the PS2 was that it was a 3D platformer with a seamless open world. There were no loading screens between areas. If you wanted to go to an area and you walked there, and there was no transition. You just go, and it lended to the atmosphere. And that atmosphere, like, there's a beach level, and there's like the sound of the waves, and there's some light drums, and I think maybe a marimba in there if I'm remembering correctly. And there's something would definitely be lost if instead of that they were going for like a big, they have like a big tribal song and dance number to play. It would not mesh well with the tone they're trying to set with the visuals of the level. And something similar to that is happening with this show to you, if I am to analyze your criticism accurately.
It's not I mean, you're close. You got most of it. It's not even necessarily that it doesn't fit the tone of the show. It's that it doesn't fit the tone of many of the scenes that it's playing towards, and also that it constantly having this one single tone for the OST is nauseating, and it makes the entire show sort of run together and bleed into this amorphous mess where it's like, well, I just want a scene to feel chill for once. Can't you just have chill? I like chill. The stuff I liked in Lycoris Recoil was the chill slice of life stuff. You can have chill. I like chill. This show does not chill.
I would disagree with that immensely. Once we get to like the third act, which is like deep into spoiler territory, I'd say after episode 6, we can no longer be in like chill mode. It is pretty much nonstop. We get the tiniest moments of respite, but after episode 6, it is like pretty much nonstop, because the episode 6 is a major turning point in the show.
I mean, okay, so the most chilled out scene I remember from the show, and I guess this is sort of, I mean, I was talking more about the soundtrack back there, but it does work for the show itself too, which is that I feel like the show never stops and never gives itself a break. The closest thing I felt to a break throughout the show was during episode 2 at the moon scene. And, they're just talking, and Lucy's like, hey, I don't I want to go to the moon someday. You're the first person I've shown this to. And, it's just like this chill, relaxed, beautiful scene where it's like, oh, we're on the moon. Yeah, just floating around, having a good time, getting to know these characters a little bit. And it's like, whoa, this is actually kind of cool. And, obviously it does eventually do a left turn into a rapid tone switch into the main character getting pummeled. But the point is that, it felt like it was relaxing for a little bit. And granted, there are some scenes that should feel a little more relaxing. There are some talkative scenes where people are just going over like, all right, here's the plan. We're going to do this and then that and then that. Or like, here's the way it be. And here's what we got to do because this is the way it be. Talking about their plans. In episode 4 in particular, there's a lot, like this huge montage scene intercutting multiple conversations and a training montage
which is the best thing in the entire show, by the way.
We'll get to that. So anyway, it's just my notes on this show are just or my talking about this show is just a constant. We'll get to that because I disagree with you, but no. So like there are some more talkative scenes of people just sitting around, but part of and this is going back to the soundtrack, because the soundtrack has no chill button, so it tries its best to make this feel. It's almost like it's trying to make the conversations feel like an action scene at times, and it's like, well, no, it shouldn't. And I guess this is mostly an OST problem, but I guess it gets more into another issue I have with the show, which is that most of the dialogue is plot related. Like, most of it is. And
well, this is a very story-driven show.
Yeah. And I do get what it's going for. Like, it is very much a plot-focused adventure. But I want at least, like you were saying earlier, that you could see someone saying, and even possibly agreed yourself, that, hey, 2 more episodes to have more time to flesh out some of the side characters. It's like, I want that. I need that. Because I want more stuff like the moon scene, where they're just talking about each other or hanging out. And it is sort of the JoJo's effect, where what I was talking about with Stone Ocean, where like there's very little moments of people just hanging out, and I miss that.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on that front. I feel like the only two characters who like get like a good number of heart to hearts together outside of like the mass chaos of shooting and blowing things up are David and Lucy. You know, there are other moments there where characters will, you know, calm down and be human with each other, like David and Gloria in the first episode. David and Rebecca get a couple moments. They don't last too long, but they get a couple. Um, Maine gets just a couple, and what I wish the show did more, if it had like 2 more episodes to dedicate to fleshing out the side cast, is to get me a little more invested in them, because I like all the side characters. There's not a side character I dislike in this show. But I feel like the events that happen within the narrative that dramatically shift the dynamics permanently throughout the remainder would hit way harder if if I both A, had more time with them, and B, knew more about them than they are members of this gang, and that's pretty much it, to like be attached to them and feel for them even more when, you know, some good things happen to them and some bad things happen to them. Like when we shall not go into spoilers yet, but of the gang, the only characters who get like super development are David and Lucy, whereas everyone else is pretty static.
I would definitely say that, unless you count Going Cyber Psycho as an arc, which it isn't.
That's not character development. That's just that's more of a narrative thing than a.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. It is more of a narrative thing.
It is in David's case, which with this going slightly dipping into
that's
spoilers,
not a spoiler.
But not so.
Dude, the entire show is about Going Cyber Psycho. I'm pretty sure most people saw this coming.
Well, yeah, this is I'm just prefacing to, in case anyone is like gripping their mini skirts and like jumping up on the chair being like, eek, a spoiler. No. You should like go into the show knowing that this is gonna be about a guy who's like, he's getting involved in the wrong crowd, man. He's making some bad decisions. To bring up Breaking Bad again, this is kind of his Walter White story. This is how a man who had nothing left to lose is turned into the dark side, and finding that, you know, maybe he's getting a little too wrapped up in this for his own good, and how this good person is turning bad, and this is downward descent into hell. So in David's case, this is very much in line with his development.
Yeah, that definitely is a factor for David and his development. For the other person, I'm gonna consider that a spoiler and not say who it is.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it is nearly as much. And
no, that is a narrative moment.
Yeah. So about Rebecca. So she seems to be one of the fan favorites, at least of the side characters, and to my knowledge of basically all of the characters. But you've seen more of the discourse on the show, so you can agree or disagree and probably have more information as to what the fan reception is.
Fans like her. It's the thing outside of the show that people seem to be.
I know
having
exactly
up in arms
what
in,
you're
which
talking about.
I guess now is as good a time as any to get into it.
Okay, we can postpone
the
my complaints about her for now.
Yeah, we got to answer the most pressing matter. This is the question that scholars have been racking their brain for centuries trying to figure out. Is Rebecca a lolly?
I think that, I mean, she's clearly not supposed to be a child, but more importantly is that considering like having her in the show, some kind of like immoral action, and to be fair, this is mostly based off of what the direct like people who worked on the show said, as far as I can tell. I'm not actually super knowledgeable about this. You'll basically be introducing it to me, but It's like considering her being in the show problematic is basically just saying, hey, your character has small tits? Pedophile! Pedophile! Rotten vermin! It's like, no, that's no, wrong, bad. That's a very, very much a bad thing. We shouldn't outlaw fictional women having small boobs. Like, that is asinine and ridiculous and stupid, and you should go jump off a cliff.
Yeah, the main issue people are taken with the controversy, even though it shouldn't really be a controversy at all, is that CD Projekt Red was like, hey, Rebecca, we're looking at Rebecca and we're seeing what like role she's playing in the story, and we're looking at her design and being like, maybe, you know, the world of Cyberpunk and Night City doesn't like lollies don't fit in this world. And then Sugar stood their ground like the chads that they are and said, the lolly must stay. That is their words from CD Projekt Red from a live stream. Trigger was like, no, the lolly stays.
Based.
Trigger really slapped their hand on the table, being like, no cunny, no money.
Words to live by.
Yeah, I need that on a fucking shirt, dude.
Holy shit, I would get that on it. I'm writing that down. That could be a t-shirt design. No cunny, no money.
But to throw, you know, our 2 cents, I'll start with mine, then you can weigh in. The whole debate, quote unquote, it boils down to a denotative and connotative difference in definition between the word lolly. Because if we're going by the, like, you know, actual textbook definition of loli, you know, from Lolita, where it's derived from, a lolly is just a body type. It is not like, it does not have to do with age specifically. It's more of just like small, petite, slender frame. You know, could be reminiscent of a, you know, a child is more likely to have a small, petite frame, but this is more, the age is pretty much irrelevant when it comes to like the textbook definition. The connotative definition that weebs have adopted and kind of made into the generally accepted one when you're talking about anime lollies are, you know, your child characters that are like overly cutesied, you know, your Kanas, your Saikawas, your
every Gochi-Yusa girl.
Yeah, all the Gochi-Yusa characters. And there's a difference between like a lolly in anime and a character who's just a young girl in an anime. Like I would disagree heavily of calling the girls from K-On! Lollies, even though they fit,
fuck no.
like
yeah,
they would fit the textbook definition, but I would not consider them lollies in the anime definition. Just like in the same way, I would not consider Rebecca a lolly by the anime standards. If you want to go by textbook, sure, but yeah, I'm looking at this character. She's drinking. She's blowing shit up. That to say that, you know, a lolly character can't be like chaotic evil or some shit, but it can't be like this nonstop, uncontrollable ball of death and destruction. But she's definitely not like child coded or any shit like that. She's just is a small framed woman.
I agree completely. And the idea of calling someone a pedophile for having that in their show or for enjoying that character, it's like, well, no, it isn't. Nothing about it. Even putting fiction even putting the whole fiction debate aside, it's like, well, no, she just isn't one.
Well, yeah, there's 2 types of people that are insufferable on this debate. They are the people who are, you're describing, like, treating it, like, isn't this kind of, like, weird pedo shit, when it's clearly not. But then, on the other side of the coin, there are the weirdos, who are, like, oh yeah, this chalk this one up for a W for like keeping the censors off of our backs and treating it like basically like Rebecca is like, even though their argument is that Rebecca is not a lolly by the textbook definition, they're treating this like trigger standing their ground moment as if though she is like a lolly by the anime definition, and then being like, "Oh yeah, that's a dub, baby." And it's like, but this it doesn't what Trigger say and what you are like clamoring about, are they not opposite meanings?
You know, there are two universal truths in this world. One is that we all die, and two, that a lolly debate will devolve into cancer. And
I
this
mean,
one...
they're all just stupid. Like the shit from Dragon Maid, the shit from Uzaki-chan.
Well, the Uzaki-chan one was especially stupid, to be fair. That was turbo stupid.
And you know, like we could spin our wheels about that for fucking hours if we had negative brain cells, and just go back and forth on textbook versus and like of the urban definition. But if if you're dying to know our opinions, I think that the whole thing is stupid. Yeah, we're opining on the situation. I think the whole thing's kind of stupid. I don't get why CG... The thing that struck me weird about CD Projekt Red being so against it is like, why... If the thing was like... The whole thing about being worried that a lolly being a part of Cyberpunk would be like weird because of sexual reasons... Wouldn't that be good for your show? Because, like, the whole show is about one of the key aspects of Cyberpunk in both the game and the show is how, more so in the game than the show actually kind of tones down the sex in comparison, is that debauchery and sin is just kind of like the norm, and so weirdo sex things are just kind of commonplace. So wouldn't it not be out of place for a lolly to exist and, you know, be somewhat sexualized? I'm choosing my words carefully because I'm not trying to get anyone dropping down the hammer being like, oh, so what you're saying is you want children to be sexualized, you weirdo.
I mean, if your argument begins with "so what you're saying," you've pretty much already lost. 90% of the time, at least.
What I'm saying is that even if what CD Projekt Red was fearing would happen to Rebecca were to come to pass, I feel like that would just lend itself to the show's depiction of a fucked up cyber dystopia. But I mean, if we're already getting people getting fucking turned to blood mist and getting fucked up in the most brutal, gory ways possible, is a childlike woman being sexualized like truly the worst thing like being shown on display here?
I don't even think she's all that childlike. Like,
she's not. That's the thing.
Like, in personality, even the body type argument, I don't buy it at all. Are you saying?
Well, the body type thing is like, yeah, she does have a small, slender, petite frame. I will not disagree there. I just think that when people are like, you know, the people who go on Twitter and unironically put lolly connoisseur in their Twitter bio and are like, you can already tell on the site are the most obnoxious motherfuckers you will ever see in your life. They are the ones who are like celebrating that Trigger celebrate like too much. Like they're treating this like blowing this way out of proportion. Like they're coming for our small titted, maybe childlike characters. Because, you know, to some of them, it don't stop with just like the body type. It goes down to age for some of them. And that's where we get into, you know, weird territory.
Yeah, I just don't think this show, I mean, without the controversy, would this show really even attract those people? maybe an incredibly small minority, but she isn't tailored towards them, like, at all. Like,
No, I think of lolly characters. I think of like the Gochiusas, your Kanas, your fucking. Goddamn, I had her pictured in my head, and for some reason it disappeared.
Saikawa?
No, I already said Dragon Maid. Fucking Sagiri from Aramanga Sensei. That's
Yeah.
a lolly. That's like a perfect example.
Yeah,
Like that,
when
that could
I
be the
hear-
poster child.
When I hear Lolicon, I just imagine Gochi Yusa. Every single time someone says it, the image of the Gochi Yusa poster flashes in my head. And even then, that show isn't sexual at all. I mean, okay, there's like, I remember one changing scene now that I say it, but for the most part, it's not. But I digress. The point is that Rebecca doesn't look anything like that. Her purpose in the story is not related to that. She just is a character with a small chest. Like, is that illegal now? Oh no, A cups in your show. That's bad. You can't do that. That's what sort of cretin are you?
Where is the justice for our flat sisters? How are we supposed to feel when we're writing them out of history?
I mean, yeah,
It
some
is
people would want to
fucked
do that. So there I have seen the argument on Twitter that all anime is pedophilia, but you know, Twitter is
Yeah, and they're retarded.
Twitter. Yeah.
Moral of the
TLDR,
story,
stop
Rebecca's not a
using-
lolly.
TLDR, stop using Twitter.
I was gonna say Rebecca's not a lolly, and like when we're talking about anime, you know when the fuck someone's calling someone a lolly, you know what the fuck they're talking about. Don't throw the textbook definition like you're trying to be a actually like just shut the fuck up.
So now that we've gotten the controversy with an asterisk out of the way, it's time to go into I guess Rebecca's status in the fandom and my thoughts, because I have some interesting thoughts about it, which is that Rebecca is the fan favorite character. No, and she has a very fun personality. I will give her that. I do like her personality.
I've got a bit of a hot Rebecca take.
Oh, go on.
I love her design. My favorite Rebecca scene is the scene in episode 4 where she's at home with her brother, talking with David, and she's in her best outfit where it's just her with her hair down in her casual underwear at home. And the first thing she does when David knocks answering the door is to put a gun directly up to his head and be like, "Oh, David, what's up, bro? How you been?"
That is such an amazing scene and instantly characterizing and takes you completely off guard. That is
I love how even though she like has already established that it's David, it's like she still doesn't take the gun away from his head, being like, "Hey," it's still like, "Hey, what's up, Choom? How you doing, broski? What you got there?" Because that's just how she is.
Yeah, definitely my favorite Rebecca moment. Another one, the spoiler I mentioned earlier. You know what I'm talking about. If you know, you know.
Yeah, we're not there quite yet, but that was also a good one. As far as my hot take goes, I am not big on her design, like her normal what the fuck can I not find the word? Her base design, where she's bundled up in that coat, got her hair up in those twin tails. Not that big of a fan.
I'm going to get an image because I remember really liking Rebecca's design.
I am in love with her design when she was in that scene in episode 4. When she
okay, I
looks
see.
way
All right,
better with
so
her
I
hair
see the
down.
Twin Tails version now. I definitely agree that she looks better with her hair down, and that with her hair in Twin Tails,
I know there's something weird about the coat as well. She like it's weird for me to describe. I like her silhouette more without the coat. I feel like the coat is fine. I just feel like it adds this weird amount of weight to her, and like it, for lack of a better term. I mean,
I sort of get what
I guess
you're
that's part of
saying.
like the design choice. Oh, it's like a small woman in a big coat. But I don't know. She just looks better without it.
I'm looking at all the different, all sorts of pictures online. Hold on, is my cat there? Okay, I heard rustling and I was trying to check if it was the cat. Okay, anyway, moving on.
The cat wanted to weigh in on the Rebecca debate, but it's
Yeah.
too late. We've moved on.
I don't mind the coat. I completely agree with the hair thing. And like the second she puts it down, she looking cute. And I really like her color design. That is the one thing I definitely want to say.
Oh yeah,
about
her eyes, bro. That's the selling
Her
point.
eyes are entrancing. And like the markings on her body are also very immediately interesting and eye-catching.
Yeah, a lot of the character designs across the board are fucking spectacular. Shout out to my boy Yo Yoshinari, creator of Little Witch Academia, and director of that show, character designer for that, and also BNA. He's one of my favorites on the Trigger staff, just behind Imaishi.
Yeah. Good character design. I love her personality, by the way. Like very, you know, she's got a lot of spunk. She's like you said, like points the gun at the main character the one moment. She's super aggressive, got tons of energy. She's my kind of character.
Yeah,
The problem.
My favorite
Oh, go
exchange
ahead.
is when she is talking with her brother, being like, "Yo, bro, are we done? Is David done here?" And he's like, yeah, he can go. Rebecca, tip him on your way out." And then she shoots his hand and like flips him off, being like, "Fuck you, tip him yourself, you cheap ass."
I loved that exchange.
Very endearing.
I like her. You know, I like all of that about her, but she has so little screen time. It's like she feels to me like a character that should have way more dialogue and like moments to shine than she does. And to be fair, no, it's not like she doesn't do anything. In the finale, I'm not going to get into specifics here because remember, spoiler-free section, but she does serve a pretty big ideological role in the finale. At least in terms of, how did I remember his, or how am I not remembering David? Yeah. Okay, so she serves a pretty big role in, like, sort of an ideological conflict between David and her of sorts. I need to keep it vague, and I know I'm not describing this as best I can. But, you know, it's not like she does anything. It's not like she doesn't do anything. That's the point I'm trying to get at.
She tries to be the moral anchor while Lucy is occupied with something else.
Yeah, that is what I am talking about, and you described it fairly well. The show does do a fairly good job of interweaving her personality throughout the narrative the best it can, given how absurdly fast-paced it is for the most part. I know you disagree with that a little bit, but it is a very fast-paced show for the most part. It
is faster paced on the whole. I wouldn't say I disagree heavily when you say it's like nonstop all the time. There are some slower scenes where the characters are talking, they're vibing, but I think I know where you're going with this about Rebecca. Am I right to say that Rebecca at the start of the show is pretty much the same character as Rebecca at the end because she doesn't have much development?
I mean, that is true, but it's not necessarily that she doesn't develop, because I've seen shows like Lucky Star where it's 24 episodes of girls talking and not developing, or Yushiki.
Lucky Star is not a narrative show.
Yeah, that is true. But Like I don't think characters have to develop. No, like No Game No Life is a
Well,
great
okay,
example.
not every character needs to develop, but they also need to
Yeah.
have something to get attached to outside of just like,
That
you know, their
is
personality. For if they're just gonna be like a one episode throwaway character that we'll never see again, fine. But if they're supposed to like be a part of the central crew of the cast, you'd think there'd be like something about her. We don't know Rebecca's backstory. Not to say that we
Precisely.
need to go. We don't need to explore it as much as we do David and Lucy's because they're like the two main characters of the show. But like we get zilch, zip, not a word.
Yeah, it's not necessarily that she doesn't develop, that's my issue. It's that there's so little to hook yourself onto. She is purely an aesthetic character. When it's like, well, she's fun, so I want to get to know her better. I want to know her motivations, some of what she's doing, you know, some of what she wants to do. I want to get to know her as a person. I want to see the main character and her just have a long conversation about, you know, her perspective on the world and her perspective on life in general and what she thinks of everything.
Yeah, what caused her to be this homicidal maniac?
Yes! But instead, it's like if Suruga Kanbaru in Monogatari said like 5 puns and they were like, you know, really charming and you were like, whoa, that's some great dialogue. Can't wait to see what you do with this character next, Inicio. And then her arc didn't exist. It'd be pretty much like that, where I see why this character is fun. I see why she's the fan favorite. I see all the good in her and I agree with it. But she has no presence. Well, okay, she has some presence, but she has very
I would
little.
say, yeah, Rebecca doesn't not have a presence whenever she's on screen. It's just that I wish I could get more attached to her than I did. She's all bones and no meat.
Yes, pretty much that. And
Which kind of goes in line with the whole controversy surrounding her.
But I guess it's not necessarily that she has no presence when she's on screen, because she actually has a habit of stealing the presence, but it's more that she doesn't have much of a presence in the narrative. She is just one of the boys, if you know what I mean.
Which is strange for how much she's in it. You'd think she'd have a little, like, more stake in the narrative. But nope, she's just a member of the crew.
It's this weird middle ground between just being a side character that you're okay with not having that much presence versus having enough of a presence that you want to see more of her, but then you don't. Like, I always draw from recent examples, but Kurumi from Lycoris Recoil. She is, in my opinion, like a perfect side character. Sure, her personality is endearing. I like her whenever she's on screen, but it's just generic enough that you can be like, okay, I understand why she's a side character and why she doesn't have... I mean, she even has a comparable amount of presence to Rebecca, honestly, but it's like she feels more comfortable in that role.
I agree with you completely on this. Like, Kurumi from Lycoris is a prime example of like a good side character where like you don't hate that she's there, you enjoy her company, but you're not like dying to know why she, like, how she turned out this way, how she became, you know, the best hacker in Japan or in the world.
Honestly, I think doing that would kind of be a little boring, honestly.
Boring?
I like her as just this, you know, blunt hacker girl who can hack all the databases with just a flick of a finger. Like, we don't need to know how she became like that or what her ideology is. No, and maybe the show can take it to where, like, oh, Kurumi is one of the interesting main characters, but the point is she doesn't need to be, and that's what makes her a comfy side character. With this, it's like, well, I want more Rebecca. I need more Rebecca, and until I get more Rebecca, it's going to feel unsatisfying.
Yeah, and if you want my opinions on all of the other members of the crew, just Control-C, Control-V.
Rebecca's the one I noticed it the most for. The other crew members definitely have some presence. I like the guy with super long limbs and super
Pilar.
big hands. What's his name?
Yeah, Pilar.
A
Or as I
Pilar.
called him throughout the entirety of my time watching him, Cyberpunk Lobo. Because he looks exactly like a Cyber Lobo from DC.
Yeah, I don't watch anything from DC, so I'm gonna just trust you on that.
I don't think Lobo ain't even in like a show yet. He's just a comic character still.
Mhm. Well, anyway, I like him purely, like mostly on a design sense. He doesn't really have. I mean, it's not that he doesn't have personality, but we don't get a whole lot
No,
of.
he's
time
got a
with him.
personality. He is one of those side characters like Karumi from Lycoris, where it's like, I don't care about finding out his backstory because he's not in the show for that long.
Yeah,
compared
I would
to
say it's
Rebecca
like
or the other
Karumi.
characters.
Although I definitely will say that I prefer Karumi because she does have a lot more screen time than he did for reasons, but yeah, I mean, I'm thinking back to all the people in the gang, and it's
what was
like
Big Buff Girl's name? Dario?
Dorio.
Um,
Dorio. The crew members have a tendency to sort of bleed together to me, where they're all familiar faces, and they
I'd
do
say
have
Dorio
standout
is like
design.
the least cool.
Yeah. I would definitely agree with you there.
Yeah, Dorio's the least cool. I like Kiwi a lot. She's just my favorite thing about Kiwi's design is that she's got the whole mask on her face, because I think as we've seen when like at one point it gets taken off and she's just got like an entire cyberized inside of her head. Like she doesn't even have like a nose and mouth part of her face anymore. It's just like a mask piece. And yet she still is constantly smoking cigarettes. Like that's just rule of cool. Like I don't understand how that works and I don't want to.
That is cool. And I love her design. All the character designs in this show are great. But it's like, to me, for the most part, while watching the show, I sort of compartmentalized the entire gang as these super, like these guys who do crime and have a lot of swagger. And that is, at least to me, an accurate way to compartmentalize the entire group, because no one, I mean, to be fair, there are little flashes of each character having individuality and existing separately, especially Kiwi near the end. But for the most part, they never fully come into their own as characters. And so it's easy to just write them all off as the criminals with swagger.
Yeah, and that's kind of sad because I wanted to like be like more attached to this crew than I was. I was just attached to them on like the a surface level of being like, oh, they're fun. They've got a wide range of personalities. They bounce off each other pretty nicely. It's missing that one level deeper of getting me like, I'd be way more into these characters if I knew what made them tick.
I mean, you say that they bounce off each other nicely, and I don't necessarily disagree, because they all do have personalities, and especially, I'm trying to long limbs.
Pilar?
Lilar? Is that his name? Pilar and Rebecca, I especially love the one scene of their dynamic. The one.
Yeah, you want to see more.
Yeah,
but
just
it's like don't.
The thing is, because the show is so focused on just plot, with, and granted, like I said, little bits of character here and there, small charming lines of dialogue are peppered throughout. It's not like it lacks this entirely. The writers were aware that, like, hey, you gotta put in a little bit of spice to make the narrative good. But it's like, there's not enough of that. And more than that, I want to, like you said, see what makes these characters tick. It's like, to me, they're good character designs and they have funny swagger, and that's it. Like literally nothing beyond that.
And it's a damn shame too, because that's like that's one of the things holding this show back from being like amazing. Like this is a great. I think this is a great show. But if we got like those, like I said, those two. If this went from a 10 episode to a 12 episode show, and we got those 2 extra episodes dedicated to like going back into the stories of some of these characters, like Kiwi especially. I feel like for how much pomp and circumstance they give to Kiwi, bringing in Lucy, being the one who brought Lucy onto the team and taught her everything she knows, you'd feel like there'd be more of a connection between the two that we see happen in the show. We get, I think, like one scene with them where they talk over the phone, and that's it.
Yeah. I can't remember any other scenes with them together like that.
And I just wish we had a little more to chew on. But I will say though, if like this is the worst that the show has to offer, just a lack of well fleshed out side characters, it's not the worst thing in the face of the pretty much god tier presentation. No other way to describe it.
So I mean, it's pretty much impossible to disagree with the nigh objective fact. Obviously, there's no objective good, but this is about as close as it gets to being just a show that everyone can agree looks great. You know, it's got tons of visual stimuli, interesting world, interesting character designs, lots of motion, tons of animation. It is like an all-around holistically good-looking experience.
The production values never drop. It remains consistent throughout all 10 episodes.
I will say that episode 10 has a lot of recap footage. I don't mind it. I think it was a very good use of recap footage.
The events that happen in the last episode... Yeah, for what happens in the last episode of this one season television series, I feel like it's justified.
Yeah,
especially when they only use it for like literal seconds. Like I don't think it even comprises a minute of the half-hour episode.
I'd say it probably it could. I wouldn't be surprised.
Like
but...
if you collectively put into a supercut, I would bet money that would not take up a minute of that runtime.
Maybe more like 40 seconds. That's what I'd
30
guess
at best.
Least. But anyway,
for how quick they cut between them.
Yeah, they are very quickly cut in, and it probably was envisioned.
Which is
I
also
wouldn't say solely to
part of
be
the narrative because
decision.
The character. I think it was a conscious decision that benefited the narrative because the character that is experiencing the flashbacks has a pretty damn good reason to be experiencing flashbacks right now.
Which we'll get into later. And yeah, I get it, and it does ratchet up the emotional tension. It was like they probably knew what they were doing while they were writing it, where they were like, okay, this will save us some budget, but this is the best way to save budget. You know, allocate, use the recap footage.
I don't think they had to worry about
powerful.
Budget on this one, bro. This show just is incredible looking.
I mean, I imagine they had at least a few worries, even if they were probably rolling in time and money to make this, considering what we got out of it. But, you know, you always got to worry about budget a little bit. And
Trigger's one of those... See, Trigger has this cool thing called, you know, paying your animators and not working them to death. They're one of the
that's
cool
a mildly cool
that.
addition to the studio. I'd say that was... You know, puts the studio, you know, it's a bit of a good thing, a tiny bit to not have your workers on the verge of suicide. Just a small addition to the studio that makes it a bit better.
I will say though, though my Trigger experience is limited, I will, while this definitely is up to par with Trigger's, line level of quality. I will say it does not quite hit the peaks that shows like Kill la Kill, or even if you want to go back to pre-Trigger Imaishi work like Gurren Lagann, or even Panty and Stocking at its best moments. It doesn't quite hit those strides, but if you're talking just a consistent, visually spectacular show, look no further.
Granted, I haven't watched the entirety of Kill la Kill, but from what I've seen of just footage from the show and having seen 2 episodes of it, I definitely prefer the visual style of Kill la Kill and how everything is like even more whacked out than in this show. And I definitely think I'd prefer the style on that show. But this is still obviously like probably one of, if not the best looking anime this year.
Without a question.
I mean, it depends really on if you how cute you think Anya is. That is the competition. Either consistently good stylistic visuals or Anya is cute. Not gonna lie, I wouldn't put it past myself
the show is
to
better
say
looking than Spy X Family.
it's genuinely a
taken on the
ton.
whole.
Okay, listen, this is definitely the technically better looking show with the technically better looking animation. However, Anya is cute, and that might sway me.
Yeah, but Rebecca's cute too.
But Anya's cuter.
Yeah, but I could fuck Rebecca and not feel bad about it. not feel weird about it.
Man of taste. Okay.
I say
I mean,
that,
I guess
but,
Spy Family has the CG crowds that might pull it back under. Depends on how cute the Anya expressions are in the second core. I hate saying
Spy X
core,
Family only has
but...
one fuckable character, whereas this show has a bunch.
Fair. It's just that your is way prettier. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, I prefer yours design to all of theirs, but is your just like letting it all hang out and free boobing it?
No,
think not.
but that's part of her appeal. She's a bit airheaded and I wouldn't say shy, but a bit blushy at times. That's her appeal, Neon. You don't get it.
Yeah, that's cool if you're into it, but there just ain't nothing hotter than a girl coming out of an ice bath wearing absolutely nothing with her cybernetic enhanced replacement body with a face mask, smoking a cigarette with her tits flapping around with her blue nipples for some reason.
Don't ask.
I don't.
Okay, am I the only one who found it a little weird and kind of endearingly funny that like literally every single time David and Lucy are shown in their home, they are naked? Every time.
I mean, yeah, they fucked. They're going out. They're in a relationship.
Like, it is their home, and they are wife and or not wife and husband, like boyfriend girlfriend. But like every time, and there's like this is 3 separate instances in the show at least, and it's like every time. It's kind of.
I wouldn't call it a spoiler that they develop a relationship. It's a mild spoiler, but like you could see it coming.
It's not the big O spoilers. It's not the important stuff.
Well,
it won't ruin the show for you.
Yeah, I gotta say though, I'm very disappointed in Trigger and Netflix for lacking equal opportunity nudity. We see constant female nudity. We see the tits and pussy out. Where the dicks, bro? What the fuck?
We see a
That's
guy
not fair.
pee in a barrel, and if you squint, you can see it. That is all.
Well, no, we see him piss, but we don't see the dick. We are brought to the attention that this guy had his dick replaced and with a cybernetic dick.
Oh yeah, that was a detail. But what? Okay, of all the parts to show in this anime, why not the cybernetic one? Wouldn't that at least be a little like interesting, at least world building?
You
I
know
don't
what?
know.
I didn't actually think about it until you just brought it up, and now I'm too curious because now I want to know how it functions.
Like, how is it cybernetic? What is its purpose? You know, just flash it on screen for a little bit so that our minds can be entertained with all the possibilities.
You're on Netflix. You don't gotta worry about censors.
Yeah, it is a little weird. And another thing that is bizarre to me, I wouldn't even necessarily call this a problem with the show, but like, it doesn't need to have this. It doesn't need to have any nudity in it. It's just there to be, at least in my eyes,
it's just
either for texture, self-indulgence, or I mean studio self-indulgence of, oh, I want to draw them naked, LMAO, or 3 to advertise the show.
I think it might be D, all of the above, because like we've said before, Night City is a city of like debauchery and sin, where it is now the commonplace to get your body replaced with cybernetic upgrades, and when you do so, you lose a bit of your humanity, and you can run risk of going cyber psycho and just going bear hog crazy, whatever. Babarusa was the term I believe I used. And then, so it makes sense that, you know, yep, people like to indulge in sex. So
that is a justification for it. And
Yeah,
I
I
can't
think-
really argue against it, for sure.
and dude, you think it's like, it's not at all overbearing in the show, in my opinion. But if you are to think that it's overbearing or like it's just a little bit too much in the show, boy howdy, the game fucking doubles down.
I wouldn't even call it overbearing. Although there is one moment, all right, one moment where it annoys me to no end, all right, and it's at the very end of episode 1, and it's not really a spoiler because it's episode 1, so I'll just talk about the scene in its entirety, right? So David, after all of this tragedy has happened, he sees the military grade cybernetic upgrade in his mom's apartment, and he's like, "Ooh, can I sell it?" And he gets told, "Hey, look, we'll pay cheap for it." And he's like, "Well, no, I don't want to, get it cheap." So he decides, "You know what? I'm going to fight back against this society, this world that has wronged me. I'm going to become cyber to try and find a foothold in this messed up world." And so he's looking at it, and then it smash cuts, like, this super emotional, tense buildup, smash cuts to VR sex. And my problem
I
isn't
applauded.
necessarily, all right, I was not applauding it. And the reason why is not necessarily that there was a tone switch, because I like tone switches, I even like the tone switches in this show. Episode 2, when they smash cut from the moon to the main character about to get beaten up, it's like, whoa, that catches you off guard. This is good. My problem is that for a tone switch this jarring to work, you need to commit to it. You need to have the next scene have a reason, benefit from the tone. And while you could argue it's characterizing for the guy who's giving him all the cybernetic stuff, why now? Because the next scene doesn't have anything to do with that. It's not this light, funny scene, or, right after the shot of VR sex, it cuts to him, going up to the guy and being like, "Yo, I want cybernetic parts in my body. You give me the surgery for it. I need to, get powered up, fight against society." And it's like, well, that's all emotional and good stuff, valuable emotional moment. But it's like, the shot of VR sex doesn't need to be there. It doesn't benefit the scene at all. The tone doesn't switch. It's just, it goes from serious to ridiculous for literally one shot, back to serious. And it's like, for that to work, you need to actually switch from serious to ridiculous. You can't just
And they
have
did.
it blip.
Well, I don't know. I feel like that's just kind of a nitpick.
It is a nitpick,
I
but it
didn't-
annoys me.
I didn't think it was that. I think it was a problem at all. I thought it was perfectly natural for a weirdo like the doc to be jerking it to VR porn.
It's not
and then,
weird that he's doing it.
and
It
then
is
David
in
busts
character, but it's just like, why this scene? It could have been any of the others. Literally any other point in the show would be better than now.
All right, hold on. Let me paint you a picture. What would you, if you wanted to like sell the audience on the weirdness and debauchery of the society? Would you rather have David walk in on the doc, making himself a sandwich, and then he's like, "All right, doc, I need you to put this. I need you to chrome me up, bro." Or would you rather him walk in on him with his fucking fleshlight on his dick, fucking cooming to VR squirting girls?
I get what you're saying, and I don't necessarily disagree with it, but we've already, like, there are plenty of other examples of this in the show, and B, it could come at literally, it could come at literally any other point in the show, and nothing would be lost. And in fact, I would argue that something is gained from keeping that tone carry over. And there is merit to, like here's another thing I just thought of how you could argue it, which is that the serious tone of the scene being intercut with that sells that, like, this sort of emotional trauma is everyday commonplace. But that's a moot point. We know that, and it's good to reinforce it, but in this way, I just don't like it.
I don't know. I felt like it was kind of achieving the opposite, where it was like the blip back to the ridiculousness of VR porn, and then David busts in and be like, "Yeah, no more. We ain't fucking around no more. I'm taking this shit seriously. I'm getting chromed up, and I'm gonna take my revenge."
I could see that. Like, that does make sense to me, but I don't know.
He's
Just
cutting
the
through
smash cut.
bullshit.
Like, it's clearly meant to be a tone switch. At least the smash cut is, and it just feels kind of jarring the way it is intercut in this scene, and it doesn't need to be there.
I guess we'll just agree to disagree on that one.
I mean, yeah, in the end, it is a nitpick, admittedly. And I do want to actually go from this to praising the tone switches by saying I love how often it does that. Switching gear very rapidly is my jam in media. I do love
you mean like the best scene in the entire show in episode 4, with the excellent cross-cutting montage between David getting training with Lucy, getting advice from Maine, and learning on the job as part of the crew.
Okay, so I don't.
Or are you going to
dislike-
tell me that literally everything you were arguing for the last 5 minutes doesn't apply to this one scene in particular?
I mean, hold on. Explain that for a second, because I mean, it's not the tone switches here aren't nearly as jarring, if I recall correctly.
Well-
Like, was there a super jarring moment in there that I'm just forgetting, or like a super sudden tone switch?
no.
Because it's just sort of
No, not
to me
really.
intercutting between like a training montage and dialogue. Like, to me, that doesn't, like, there's no issue with that, because it's not like jarring or out of place.
I literally forgot the point that I was trying to like counter on. It was the thing you said about like a minute ago, just after you were done talking about the tone shift, and then that brought me the reason I brought up the cross-cutting montage scene.
Do you remember your point, or do you not?
I remember that my point was like the scene was good, and my favorite in the entire show.
I liked it at first because, admittedly, montages great way to keep the pacing fast, keep not necessarily the tension high, but to be able to transition back into tension very easily. And it is, it can make endless dialogue scenes more watchable. And there are 2 of those being intercut with a training montage. but it's this whole thing of like the show always needs to be energetic, so you get this huge montage of training and dialogue with like all the bopping soundtracks in the background. And it's like after a while, I just wanted the soundtrack to stop and for the main character David to just be talking to Lucy and the other dude, I forget his name.
Main.
Main, yeah.
Or is that who's literally just
Yeah, named after a state. All right, hold on, my cat wants
No,
it
I was
again.
gonna say he's just literally Cyber Duke Nukem. I take it you are unfamiliar with that very famous video game character.
Huh?
The Duke Nukem?
Oh yeah, I was letting my cat into the room. But yeah, I know who Duke Nukem is.
Okay, good. I was gonna say.
Yeah, everyone knows who
So-
Duke Nukem is.
Alright, so keep going on about why you're fucking wrong about how good this scene is.
All
Or
right.
how you're wrong about how bad it is. I'm right about how good it is.
To me, it's like, and granted, I'm a slice of life fan. I'm a Monogatari fan. Have to specify this every podcast because, you know, I imagine a montage like this is many people's preferred way to do things. And this is, granted, a bit of a subjective point, you know. I can't necessarily argue you if you say, I like the energy and, you know, the boppin' soundtrack, but to me it's like, well, the entire show is that. It's always blaring these songs. I mean, I guess not necessarily blaring, but like they're constantly these energetic EDM songs with vocals and constant insert songs. You know, that is most of the entire show. Even when characters are just sitting around and talking, it still has the energetic, upbeat OST. And so it's like, this is just that on steroids. And after a while, because it does go on for quite a while, and after a while, I was like, well, I just want to have them sit and talk for like at least like 3 or 4 minutes. Just get me some time to hear them talk without the OST going ham, with just silence and them sitting on a bench together. You know, anything that isn't just constantly trying to feel so energetic and bombastic.
I feel like a cross-cutting montage of like this caliber would be significantly made worse without the music.
To be fair, right? Like if this were if my problems with the OST and how things are presented didn't exist, I'd probably like this scene in a vacuum. But to me, when I was watching it, I just kept on thinking, this is the problem, that it doesn't slow down. And also that I just prefer a normal dialogue
but, like,
scene.
Don't you like not want to slow down in a montage of all places?
I'm talking specifically about the conversations, right? Because the training montage I get, that needs the boppin' tunes. Like if that doesn't have the boppin' tunes, then
Well, the thing about the montage is that it's not just a montage of him, you know, training and doing the jobs. They're also they're cross-cutting in between those the conversations that he has with Lucy and the conversations that he has with Maine. And the cool thing about them is that they lean into each other. And so, like, when one topic is brought up in one conversation, it switches over to the other one. And it seems like the conversation is, like, remaining on top. Like, two conversations that are different from each other going on at the same time. But when the topics align, it switches back so that way the train of thought is not lost. And I thought it was incredible directing and writing.
I do agree with that. It is interesting how it does that. And like I said, in a vacuum, this scene is fine. But to me, it's like, but I just want at least a scene of them, no OST, sitting on a bench talking. Just at least once, please. And so, even though it is good in a vacuum, I saw the scene as sort of emblematic of a greater problem. Also, my cat wants fucking out again. She is indecisive. I'm not letting her back in.
Your cat is saying how much you're fucking wrong and stupid about this.
All right, my cat's back out of the room. I'm not letting her back in so we can continue.
Your cat wanted to let you know how fucking wrong you are. All right, I think that will have to do for the spoiler-free part of the discussion, because we're going on 2 hours now, and we got to start wrapping this up soon. So let's go ahead and dive into spoilers.
All right. I guess you can start, since you seemed, or at least seemed to me, pretty enthusiastic to talk about the spoiler section.
Yeah, we've been neglecting to talk about David the entire time, who is like the best written character in the show.
I would absolutely agree.
Yeah, like, cause I thought that when he was going to join the gang, when his mom died, cause of the accident in episode 1, which I saw coming from a mile away, cause as soon as anime moms start getting sentimental, that's like the biggest death flag you could throw up, especially in episode 1.
Oddly enough, I did not see the death coming.
Literally how, dude?
I'm trying to remember how my thinking process went. All right, but you gotta at least give me this. I did see the him going cyber psycho thing coming from a mile away. So at least I'm not, I may be stupid, but at least I'm not brain dead.
Yeah, seeing David's going like literally his Joker story, and him going Joker mode at the end of episode 1 is super duper appealing and engaging. I didn't think that it would be such a depraved, or I guess compared to all the other characters in this world, David's still kind of like, comparatively, he does some fucked up shit, but to see him compared to all the other people, he's kind of grasping onto sanity still, despite how cyberized he makes his body, which is a point made in the show. Like, for some reason that doesn't go explained, I guess he just happens to have a higher tolerance than others, or as he says, he's just built different. When he equips the military grade implant, I believe they call it the Sand Devistan, he is able to withstand its effects, which it's supposed to make the user super duper fast. So like time slows down and they're able to move real fast, and a really cool visual effect.
So you go Sonic the Hedgehog.
I think my favorite moment of it is when he's standing on top of the convoy car in, I think, episode 9, before he like puts the harpoon into the rock to try to trip it up before it drives into the canyon. And because he activated it while it was standing on the moving convoy, even though he's standing in place, his like after images are like trailing behind him like a ghost.
Yeah.
And when he's just standing still, that was fucking Kino.
All right, my favorite use of the power, aside from him just going sicko mode at the end, is in episode 3, which is mostly meant to sort of get us situated with this gang by having them pull off, they're basically stealing the data of someone's car in order to steal the car itself. And when they're in the car and running away from the people who got sent after them in order to get the car back, he uses his power to turn the steering wheel. I am so good at speaking.
They did
turn
steal
it really
the car,
fast.
so you could also call it a stealing wheel.
True. And he turns it really fast in order to get the car to flip over and like do all these jumps. Really
the
cool.
quick jerky motions.
Yeah. Like really cool use of his power, really creative use too. It isn't just him going fast as light. He can actually, use it for more than that and use his head a little. And there's like some tactics to the action scene, which mucho appreciated. I like tactic stuff.
Yeah, I love when I love how he uses it to just steal the data chips from people's necks, and how he just with his speed is just able to like just dart around him real fast like a whole crowd even in a crowded train. During the training montage, there's this one cool scene where he does it in just like a split second, and he's got like a big pile of chips.
I
so
do
big it's
remember
almost
that.
overflowing out of both of his hands, cupped together.
All right, so here
He's
this
got
is
a big
this
grin
is
on his face.
absolutely a nitpick, and I might have just missed something. But how does he get their chips out of their neck? Because they just kind of float out.
Lucy hacks them, and it causes them to eject out of their neck ports.
All right, that makes sense then.
And then he just like goes so fast and like catches them all out of the air and moves so fast they can't even notice.
All right, that does make sense then. All right, because it was confusing me a little, specifically in episode 2, where I was like, but how are they getting out? But yeah, considering Lucy as a hacker, yeah, that does track. And we were talking earlier about how episode 1 is like the perfect introduction to this character. And I agree. In fact, so I went into this show expecting that like it wouldn't be my thing. Not gonna lie. But then I saw episode 1 and I thought, dang, this might actually totally be my thing. Because
it's kinda good.
Yeah, I was actually vibing with it at first. And the reason why is because we get a very efficient introduction to David's character that also like basically tells you most of what you need to know about him and his backstory, and gets you right there in his shoes feeling for him, where he's sort of this standoffish, gloomy kid from the slums who's trying to make it in this academy owned by a super corporation that's like supposed to have really good students. And just seeing that was very endearing, how he, standoffish from the slums, but trying to make it big in this world, dreaming high, trying to find his place in a world that is dead set on not giving people like him specifically from the slums, it's against giving those people a chance.
You say he's dreaming high, but really he don't got a dream at all.
Yeah.
Like he's thinking about
his mom's dream.
Dropping out for his mom's sake. But his mom is like, oh, but don't you know, I take all these long work hours. I'm trying to put you through the schools to let you climb the corporate ladder. And like David, like he feels for his mom and is like not ungrateful for it, but it's also like, well, he doesn't have like the guts to be like, well, mom, I appreciate it, but what if I don't want to? And like, what if I want to like do something else? And he doesn't know what he wants to do yet. And that's part of the problem. So until that, like, what other choice does he have?
I guess it's less him dreaming high and more him achieving high for other people's dreaming high.
Yeah, he was a straight A student back in the big top school that he got into.
It's just that his personality made him not really fit in with his peers. There's this trio of bullies, one of which is the biggest monster in fiction. Like, holy hell, he is wretched. But anyway,
he's just you talking about Katsuo?
How do you remember his name?
Because I take fucking notes.
He appears in 1.5 episodes.
I took notes on his name.
He has like a few minutes of screen time total. But anyway.
Yeah, and they say his name several times, and I write it down to be like, hey, maybe this will be important later.
Maybe I should start doing that. Maybe I can remember the names if I try.
Do you just, when you take notes of these characters in these shows, you just like write them based on what they look like? A blue-haired bully kid, and not just their name?
Yeah, exactly. Literally that. Like before we learned, before I got Lucy's name memorized, I just called her White Hair.
No respect for the good characters.
But anyway, this monster, it literally bullies him for his mom dying, like completely out of pocket.
That's what when she dies, and then he's like, I heard what happened to your mom. That's what happens when you try to live outside your means, you street rat. And then he promptly gets his shit kicked because of it. justifiably so.
Yeah, episode 2 is when David, like, he snapped. He's like,
He starts to man up.
Yeah, he's like, I need to find my place. I mean, he doesn't really find his own place. He more lives to get other people into their place, but we'll get into that. And he's trying to find a foothold in this society, and his first thing is basically to use his new cybernetic enhancement to punch this dude in the face real hard. Like,
He just walks into class and is like, "Oh, what are you doing here?" They just immediately kicks him out of the chair, like, "Come on, we're gonna fight right now."
And that was definitely a moment that was like, yes, do that. Thank you for doing that. And this was basically like probably the peak of my investment in the series, because I really felt for that, like his character's backstory. I guess my problem with David, because he is a well-written character, like, I'm not gonna argue you on that front. He is well written. His arc is mucho good, at least on a technical level. But I felt like the peak of me feeling for him was the first 2 episodes. And I guess it's that I wanted to see more of like his personality, but because this show, so much of it, and to be fair, there are little bits and pieces of him, doing things that are like personal to him and give him characterization. It's not like the show is bereft of that. It's just that, I sort of wanted more. I wanted him to have more of a memorable personality, I guess. Him to do things that are like quirky or off kilter or make me want to root for him. But as it stands, it's just like a technically well written character that I couldn't really feel. Granted, I felt some for him.
I was gonna
like
say,
even beyond
like,
the first 2 episodes, I did feel some for him at times, but I wish I was
gonna
more
say,
invested.
You cannot sit there and tell me you did not feel anything for David at the end of episode 6.
Hold on, the episode I'm checking my notes just to see. All right, tell me the event in question, because I don't remember what happens in each episode specifically.
When the Tanaka mission goes south, Main is going cyber psycho, and that causes Dorio and Main to die.
Oh, I remember exactly what you're talking about now. Yeah, I felt for him in that moment. I'm not gonna say
the last shot.
Yeah, it wasn't like I was just standing there deadpan being like, "Oh, I don't feel anything. I am mucho depresso." No, like I said, he's well written, and that does do things for me. But I guess I wish he was like, there was more of a, like, because it's not that he doesn't have depth or that there isn't anything to hook onto. I guess it's the opposite problem of the other characters, where like I'm just not vibing with his personality, specifically later on in the show. I wanted to see more of that standoffishness, because that was my favorite thing about him.
That's the thing. He can no longer, he kind of loses himself and becomes someone who is not the David we knew.
Yeah.
He's less David Martinez, the standoffish punky kid in the preppy school. He is now David Martinez, the Edge Runner.
He has become Heisenberg. He puts on the pink coat and he becomes Heisenberg.
It's a yellow coat here, though.
Yeah. So
and
I
think that's a pretty
accurate.
good reason why he is not like, he doesn't have the same personality traits that endeared him to you at the start of the series.
Yeah,
So I would not hold that against the show.
I mean, it's not even necessarily, because like I said, it is technically well written, and I do see where it's getting at, where as he, goes through his arc, he becomes less standoffish, less, he becomes more, I guess at the beginning, it's him sort of losing his moodiness a tad in order to, hang out with all these new friends he has. And it's like, he's starting to light up a little bit. In episode 5, he's happy about, having his new girlfriend. He's like, yo, this is swag. He's starting to, feel he's starting to brighten up a little bit. But then as, the tragedy begins to strike and the cyberpsychosis and all the rot in this world just basically catches back up to him. He was starting to find a place, but as it went on, it just continued and, the world beat him down further. He becomes a little more melancholic. He does, he also gets more mature, I noticed, as he goes on, where, he eventually becomes the group leader in the absence of, whatever his name is, big dude.
Maine,
the state. I while I was watching the show, I remembered him as the guy with the state name. But anyway, he becomes leader in lieu of him. And, he becomes able to work under pressure and, resourceful. He's mature. He's maturing a little bit. But
at the cost of his soul.
Yeah.
And
the
also
world
his
is
body,
eating
because
away.
he
Yeah.
cybernetic the fuck out of himself.
I will say the cybernetic stuff is probably and like what all that means, specifically in the final episode. I really like that about him. And episode 10 was one of my favorite episodes of the show. So, makes sense that the stuff that appears there is like my favorite part of his character in the later half of the show, which is that he's sacrificing his body and mind to basically chase after the dream that his mom set out for him of finding a place in this world and get in as far as he can in it. And he's doing that for his dead mom.
Well, I don't agree at all. If that's what the thing was.
You don't agree at all?
It's like half true. Like he is like thinking about his mom and what she wanted for him, but to reiterate, what she wanted for him wasn't exactly what he wanted. And while he did love his mom and wanted to make her proud, he still had an attachment to her, but what his dream ultimately ends up being that he chooses is to ensure that Lucy's dream of being able to go to the moon and just get away from Night City entirely is to like make that a reality.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, and if it sounded like I disagreed with that, that wasn't intentional, because that is ultimately what his dream ends up being.
Yeah, that's the dream that he finally decides, like, because I think part of it is that he realizes it's kind of sadly too late for him to like start having his own dream, which I suppose is one way you could interpret it. Or like the other way, we were just talking about, is how his dream is to now, because he can't have one of his own, he's going to dedicate what time he has left to ensure that the love of his life is able to follow her dream and see it through.
The way I see it is sort of like he embraces living for other people in his final moments of like being alive, because obviously he can't live for himself at this point. Himself is gone. He is going to either go insane or die, and there is no in between. So at this point, like, all he can do is use the last of his strength in order to ensure that the people around him are as happy as they can be, and specifically Lucy. And his dream in the end is he never stops doing things for other people. He never stops taking on, I mean, I guess at first it was his mom's dream, he never stops dreaming for other people. It's more like he, at that point, internalizes it as like something he legitimately wants.
Yeah, kind of almost kind of bullshitting himself into thinking that's what he wants. And when at first he does come to the conclusion of becoming a chromed up dude and getting revenge for his mom. Against like revenge for himself and his mom against the bullies and the people who like fucked the society that fucked him, so him going Joker mode. But when he becomes an edge runner, he's like, he does it less so out of willingness to like that's what he organically wanted to, he's always like thought about doing, But when he like meets with Lucy for the first time, and then is like introduced to the edge running life and does jobs with him. At first, he does it for a paycheck because it's the only way a kid like him's got to be able to make money now that he's out of the school and low on funds. What else is he gonna do? But he gets a taste for it, and while it's less that the way I see it is that it's less that he likes edge running and more so that he just happens to be good at it. And it's like a theme of, just because you're good at something doesn't mean you typically necessarily enjoy doing it. Like, say, you happen to be good at cooking and you cook some good food, but you don't want to be a chef. That doesn't sound appealing. You don't want to cook every day.
I will say that he enjoys. I wouldn't say he enjoys the edge running itself, especially later on when he starts to feel guilty about all the people he's killed. But he at first enjoys the company of other people and like having all these new friends, and then obviously
it is like the first family he has without his mom.
But as it goes on, those people sort of die. So, well,
yeah, I was taken aback by how suddenly Pilar got fucking gatted.
Yeah, that was completely out of nowhere. I was like, oh snap, oh. That was not expected.
There's a tone shift for you.
That was a good tone shift. I liked that one.
And then it led to the good Rebecca moment that we've been teasing, where she just fucking goes ham crazy.
Well, my favorite line of dialogue from her is, she's not mad necessarily because she's sad her brother died. She's mad because she wanted to kill him. Either that or it's just a lot of bluster. Which I don't think it is. I think
it's like a mix of both. I feel like she is that kind of crazy to be like, if anyone's gonna kill this son of a bitch, it's gonna be me kind of thing. But I would definitely say that she was pissed that her brother just got killed for basically no reason.
Yeah, she wanted to find a justification to kill him.
And he robbed her of it. But don't worry, at least they're reunited in the afterlife now, cause
yeah.
I guess suppose it's not unceremonious, cause they do give it the replay where we get to see the instant replay of her getting pancaked, but they really did Rebecca dirty in the end, huh?
They're finally triumphant, and it's like, oh, maybe all hope is not lost, except for the fact that it totally is, because he's going to go psychotic at any moment. But just ignore that for this and then boom, she just gets flattened by the dude in all the cybernetic
motherfucking Adam Smasher, which is one of the sickest names ever.
Adam Smasher, yeah.
I'm naming my next dog Adam Smasher.
I like in the finale when Lucy and David are looking at each other and there's like this emotional sort of heart to heart. Like they both just say each other's names and communicate as much through their facial expressions as possible. Very sweet moment. And they do get reunited before David goes full crazy / dies.
Yeah, I kind of had a feeling as soon as I figured out the trajectory of where David's arc is going in the story and how he's becoming Heisenberg, I figured he'd die at the end.
Yeah, I actually figured that since episode, from around, I think the beginning of episode 6 or something like that, where I was, my thought process was like, okay, so he's gonna go crazy in the end. There's no way that's not happening at this point. And, after he goes crazy, there'll either be a huge bloodbath of him being super powerful and killing everyone, or he'll just die without doing that. And so he's gonna have to die one way or another.
I will say, I was not too big of a fan of how he went out, which I guess it fits the narrative. I wanted him to at least go out in like a blaze of glory, take Adam Smasher with him. Because I feel like you can't just fucking kill Rebecca, get away with it. Like, come on, man.
I guess
Yeah,
it
he had
really
to like. I wanted there to be a big explosion, like Adam Smash is like trying to get away, but like with his the last of his like energy, David's holding him back and be like, "We're going out together, choom," and then they'll blow up. Maybe that's just maybe that's kind of surface level of me to.
I don't think
want
no,
that.
I don't think it's wrong of you to want a better ending, because while it doesn't bother me per se, and it is thematic, as in this world is so messed up that like yeah, the main character can just die unceremoniously without getting revenge. It's like, well, if you're invested in this character, you still want him to go out the right way. Surface level criticism isn't always to be ignored.
Yeah, like the ending, which we're kind of going a little we're running a little bit long, so we'll try to make this the last point in case, unless we have anything else we want to like quickly wrap up. The dynamic between David and Lucy is really really good. You know, they start off like Lucy at first she opens up to him because she feels like he's the first person that can sort of understand, or at least like be open with without needing to have he doesn't have a background in edge running and crime and just being like an overall bad dude, and so she's like, yeah, I suppose I could feel comfortable with opening up to this guy about where I like what my dreams are, my dreams and aspirations, and how even an edge runner like me can have a goal, a dream outside of this this neon lit hellscape.
Yeah, that aspect of her is very endearing. Probably my favorite Lucy moment. Or no, I'm trying to think of what my actual favorite. Well, obviously them talking on the moon is just a baller. Great. I love that scene.
I thought you were gonna say, well, obviously my favorite Lucy moment was every single time she had her tits out, which is a lot.
Very often, yes. I don't dislike Lucy. I definitely wish I liked her more. Her backstory, so her whole thing is that she started off basically as this pawn for the corporation that starts with A. I know I wrote it down. Arasaka.
I think it's Arasaka.
Arasaka. And she was brought up from birth to do deep dives into, I guess, cyberspace. And all right,
Yeah,
so
they. I
right.
think this is like the one part of the show where it's like knowledge of the video game might have been more like beneficial.
All right, here before you say that, I want to give you my impression, because I was confused for so long about what a deep dive is. Like, okay, so at first we're told about it in passing, like, oh, a deep dive, and it's like, ooh, what's that? Then they actually get to it, and so Lucy, she plugs into the matrix or whatever, in the ice bath. For whatever reason, they need an ice bath. I never questioned it.
I think it's like sensory deprivation.
All right. And anyway, so she goes in, and it's like this white scape, and I assume it's cyberspace. But I have a lot of questions. Like, first of all, what is cyberspace in this version? In this version of the future?
I think that's like the
is it?
I think that's like the visual shorthand they're using, the white and black void.
So it's supposed to be like a metaphor for her hacking, hacking his brain in order to.
Yeah.
Okay, because that wasn't made especially clear, and I was very confused.
I picked up on that immediately,
because all the other times there's a bunch of like her looking at all the popping up all these windows and all these numbers going by.
Well, I think that's the difference between like a basic hack and a deep dive. I think when you deep dive, you're like you directly hook up to someone and you're like
hack their memories.
Because when they hack before, yeah, like when they're doing the basic hack with all the screens and shit, I think they're just like wirelessly trying to shut down their cybernetics and like maybe turn their brain off for a moment, or like shut down their robot arms and legs and whatnot. But when you hack, they're like you're going into their memories and their databases, and you're trying to like extract information.
Well, what I thought as someone who knows nothing about the games is that it was literal. Like she's going somehow doing this thing. And I mean, I guess to be fair, they like during the backstory they say like there was all this I think it's like malware or something, or like computer viruses. And
Yeah,
at that
the way
point
they describe it was very interesting because they called it the old net, which my only frame of reference is that this is like the internet as we know it today, but at some point it got phased out for what essentially the new internet or the new net in the world of Cyberpunk.
but what's the
So
new net? Why was the old net discontinued?
I think that's a go play the video game forehead moment.
Well, I'm not gonna do that. So that question will always be on my mind.
I think like yeah, that's the only time if I were to just guess, make an educated guess and be like, I feel like this is an aspect that's either in the video game or maybe it's explored in the tabletop game that the entire Cyberpunk thing is based on.
Because like I feel like they could have eliminated the confusion by just specifying what deep diving is in like even the tiniest bit of clarity. And also so that you I knew.
I don't know. I feel like this one might just be a you problem because like I
It
didn't
is
play
a me
Cyberpunk
problem.
either, but I picked up on this immediately.
I didn't pick up on the fact that it was a metaphor because like I don't know, it's just like the word deep dive, like it doesn't really give you much to go off of. Like,
What
oh,
the
she's
fuck
in her
do you
memory.
mean it doesn't?
With their deep,
Deep
diving
dive?
into someone's memories.
Yeah.
So I don't know how that like I don't know. Like this is a nitpick admittedly, and it is absolutely a me
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah,
But, like,
I feel
I
like
didn't-
this
yeah.
is just a you problem, buddy.
I think it is. But
I think there's just a media literacy problem.
I mean, I just didn't get how it was like supposed to be hacking or whatever. I don't know.
They show that they have like the neural link on the back of her head that she allows for deep diving, and so they plug her in and they plug her into the Tanaka guy that they're trying to get the information out of.
That is true.
So I think maybe I'm not trying to to put you down. I think maybe you just didn't pay enough attention that time.
I mean, I guess I can see that. Admittedly, there is a lot to pay attention to in the show. So, yeah, I'll just explain it like that for now. Like, I'm fine with taking the L on that one.
And
'Cause in the end, it
what
doesn't really
arises-
matter.
Yeah, what arises because of this is that Lucy develops this connection with David that it's it turns into love, but it's also a fear starts to blossom inside of her where she's like, "Listen, David, I'm doing this because I quite literally have no choice. I'm pretty much on the run from Arasaka because I was one of their hackers of the old net and I was able to escape, but they're hunting me down. So I literally have no choice but to be an edge runner to escape and also strike back at them. And so, but you have a choice. You can like do other shit. You don't have to be an edge runner, and I don't want to see you go down the path I did. But unfortunately, that's exactly what happens.
Yeah, she values having your own dream versus following other people's and making theirs come true. Because for a long time, all she could do was realize the dream of this mega corporation. And it's like
She wasn't
well,
allowed to have
yeah.
a dream of her own.
And it's like value that, do your own thing. It's not selfish to do that. Just have your own dream and do your own thing and try to achieve your own goals. Don't do everything for some other person that's probably just going to backstab you, knowing the nature of this world.
And so how tragic is it that the ending, all of her fears exactly come into fruition, that even though David is able to take her to the moon in the end with the money from the job and seemingly get her away from all the edge running stuff, It's all ultimately hollow because he's not there with her. He ended up living for someone else's dream and never was able to truly get one of his own, even if he did want to Lucy to get to the moon by the end. He never was able to get anything for himself. And so there she is at the very end of the series on the moon without David, and it just doesn't feel the same.
That's the tragedy of Night City. One of the things I like most about Lucy's backstory, or not the backstory, but like her character in general, is that like how it's revealed what she's doing. Because at first, she goes in, does the deep dive into his memories, and it's like she comes back shaken, like visibly shaken, and decides to take a break from all the edge running. And it's like, well, what's wrong with her? And then I think it's at the beginning of episode 7, if I recall correctly. Either episode 7 or episode 8. It might be episode 8. Oh no, one of those two. Oh yeah, episode 8. So there's this this Arasaka guy meeting with Faraday. And basically, I think it's the Arasaka guy is like someone's messing with the plans for the cyber skeleton, something like that. And I was immediately like, oh wait, hold on, that was Lucy, wasn't it? She found, okay, so something about the cyber skeleton shook her. And then sure enough, later on in the series, it's revealed that like the reason why she wanted to basically mess with the plans to create the cyber skeleton and also, lie to everyone and be like, oh, I found nothing down there, is because she knew once David finds out about this, he's gonna use it. He is going to get himself into that thing, and it's going to kill him, and I don't want that to happen to him. And it's one of the times where this series form of storytelling really worked for me.
And she's made it her mission to try to hunt down all of the... I assume that they were... I know that they were all Arasaka personnel, and they were all like net runners like her who could like explore and do the deep dives like she can. If I remember correctly, they were personnel related to the cyber skeleton program.
In her backstory?
Well, the people that she went after after she leaves the gang.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and she kills them to try to keep David from to keep the cyber skeleton program like from ever going in fruition, to ever getting near David.
But in the end, a trap is laid, and he takes the bait, and he goes into the cyber skeleton, and it ends up causing his insanity.
But not before he does some pretty badass things with it.
Oh yeah, the scene where like after he puts it on for the first time, he's just zooming around the battlefield, taking all these dudes out, just effortlessly.
An entire battalion of tanks and soldiers fucking destroyed.
One detail I like is that it's literally so heavy that it needs anti-gravity powers just for him to be able to stand up in it.
That's raw.
Yeah, that is raw. And like it also has magnets so you can steal other people's weaponry. It's got all sorts of stuff. It basically turns you into an indestructible god.
Until you meet motherfucking Adam Smasher, baby.
Yeah, at the very least, right, this is one victory for the narrative. A very small and hollow one. But the cyber skeleton did get destroyed. I'm not sure if that's the only version of it or if there's more of them, but it was a prototype, so it could feasibly be the only version. And even if not, at least that's one less cyber skeleton in the world that presumably costs a pretty penny to make and engineer. So at least there's that. Small victory on top of this very much not happy narrative where everyone ends up unsatisfied and miserable. But hey, one small victory. Baby steps towards greatness, am I right?
Yeah, what would you say is your overall favorite moment from Cyberpunk Edgerunners?
That's a tough one.
I think the moment that hit me the hardest was like the end of episode 6, where David, he's trying to stand by Main's side and being like, "Don't worry, Main, we'll get you out of this. We'll find a way out. I know we will." And he's shaken, and he's gonna try to fight the Max Tech, the police with him. But Main's like, "David, you can't do this." Even in his like cyber psychosis stupor, he's able to to talk to David, be like, "I'm gonna keep it 100, Chief. You can't do it." And then like those words just echo through his brain, through his mind, and then that shot of him at the end of episode 6, all banged up from the explosion of the building and flying back after a job went south, and you could tell like self-doubt is starting to creep in, that maybe like he has been bullshitting himself, and that like he can't do this edge running thing. And so like that image of him just staring into the camera and like having like feeling simultaneously everything and nothing, mwah, perfect.
If I had to state my favorite moment in the show, it'd probably be either Lucy and David saying each other's names, all tired and, gone through so much during episode 10. Or, I don't know, maybe the moon scene, because, I mean, I keep coming back to that, but it's just a really nice, fun scene, pleasant. And aside from that, I'm trying to think of other scenes I like. And there definitely are ones. I'm not saying that's it, because there definitely are other scenes, but like stuff that threatens to be the best scene in the show, I'm struggling.
Well, I suppose it lends to what you feel about the show if you can't pick the standout moment.
I mean, I kinda did.
Yeah, it sounds to me like the moon scene is your favorite, which it's a good scene.
Yeah, I just want more of characters talking. Because that really is the heart of what I want in this show and what I missed not having, which is more scenes of characters. Like, just cut the flashy soundtrack for those scenes, just sit them down on a bench, have them talk, say some quirky things, really get to know that, like, flesh out the surface level personality to where it's endearing. For the side characters, give them more of a core, and then then we'd be vibing. Then I'd probably be able to enjoy this show. But as it stands, like, I don't know, man. I should like it. I don't like it.
I thought it was great. I'm sticking with the 8 out of 10. I am a little somewhat left feeling a little empty after the ending, because like I get what they were going for. I just feel like what is the takeaway?
They definitely wanted you to feel empty. At least that's what I reckon.
Yeah, maybe like that's on me for being like dissatisfied. Like what, like they set out to leave you feeling hollow at the end, and I did. But I just feel like I wish there was like one more thing to take away. Like maybe.
Go ahead.
I feel like maybe if I were just spitball, have an example of a character in the show that did have a dream from the outset that was able to be fulfilled without having a compromise like well, actually no, I guess that would fuck with the bittersweet ending of the show, because that what I was gonna describe is exactly Lucy, but it's Lucy losing David, that a part of her dream, that David became part of her dream, that makes it hurt all the more. So maybe this one's just on me. I feel like David should at least deserve to go out a little bit better than the way he did.
Even if it is on you, and it could be on you, it's like, well, that isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like, Like
I
you
I
have a
definitely
right to
maintain
feel
David
how you do.
should have at least gotten his licks in for the crew.
Yeah. No,
You
maybe
you can't
scuffed him
just
up a little
pancake
harder.
Rebecca and get away with it. That's just not fair. Rebecca didn't deserve to go out like that.
I guess I'll say this. That 8.7 on Mal, that 85% on AniList, the show probably deserves it, honestly. It has great animation, clearly lots of passion put into it. This is not a show that I am upset that it is popular in the way that something like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of something off the top of my
Classroom
head.
of the Elite.
I haven't seen that, so I wouldn't know.
Neither have I, but I have the gut feeling that like, I feel like if I watched the show, I would hate it and then hate that it's popular and then hate the people who like it for making it popular.
I guess something like Wataten, which to be fair isn't nearly as popular as this, but it still is absurdly popular.
Rent a Girlfriend back when
Yes.
season 1 when people liked it.
Yes, completely. Trying to think. Shield Hero to a certain extent, although I understand.
ReZero.
Huh?
ReZero. There's some people who like ReZero a lot.
I mean, I thought first season was like a light 7, but I also sort of got bored near the finale, so I'm not upset that ReZero is popular because it does enough to justify that in my eyes. What I am at least a little more upset about is Shield Hero being as popular as it is. Because, I mean, I guess that started good, but definitely did not end up good.
Do we have any last final thoughts about Cyberpunk Edgerunners?
My problems with it are definitely subjective. It is not a broken show, and I see why it is well liked, and I see its merit. So, if you like it, nothing against you or your taste. It is definitely a me problem that I can't get into this show. It's just not my kind of tone or feel for a show.
So after talking about it for 2 hours and 40 minutes, where do you think you end up? 4 out of 10, 5 out of 10?
You know, I'm tempted to give it like a super low 5 out of 10, because if I put it at a 4 out of 10, that'd put it under Demon Slayer, and that would be criminal.
Oh yeah, I'd say give it the 5, bro. I'd slap it with the 5.
Yeah, all right. This podcast has convinced me it is going at a very light 5 out of 10.
Damn. Well, it's a shame that I feel it's a shame that you're coming away from this show with this impression of Trigger and their whole thing. I definitely would encourage you to check out stuff like Gurren Lagann, Kill la Kill, Panty and Stocking, etc.
I mean, I think I will like
Trigger
those.
filmography.
Especially Kill la Kill. I think I will end up enjoying that if I watch it.
Yeah, Kill la Kill is one of those shows, so like I haven't watched it, but I know that when I do, it's gonna become one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah,
And
I'm definitely not discouraged from watching Trigger stuff, because I mean, hey, this is a million times better than how the realist hero rebuilt the kingdom. And as long as you're doing
there it
better
is,
than
boys.
that...
we mentioned how bad Realist Hero is. I think that makes it a bingo on the Castaway anime bingo sheet.
Didn't
Let's see,
expect
what do we
that
got? We
in
got
my
that.
Castaway anime bingo card.
We got Crunchy brings up Monogatari. Dragon Maid is brought up at some point. Let's see.
Neon
we
says,
talk about
let's
something
not...
controversial that get cancel worthy.
Neon says, let's not bury the lead.
I didn't do that this episode.
True,
I'm trying to think
that
of
is
the
an
fifth
empty
thing that-
space.
trying to
Dress
think of
Up
the fifth
Darling came
thing.
up.
Did it?
I think I
This
mentioned
episode?
it early on. Or no.
No, we talked
don't
about it
think-
before the podcast because it's getting
Oh,
a second
yeah.
season.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just confused then. But that would be on the bingo sheet.
Oh, we just need. I'm trying to think of the one thing that would
Neon
that would make it a
says the
bingo.
girls are hot.
Oh, that's every anime.
but it's
That's
specifically
the free
you bringing it
space.
up. Yeah, there we go.
And with that, I think that'll bring an end to this episode of Castaway Anime.
Yep, definitely does.
Yeah, if y'all enjoyed it, let us know down in the comments. Tell us how right and or wrong we are about our opinions on the show. I have a feeling that if people made it all the way to the end of this one, they got some opinions to share. And I don't want to, put the target on your back, but I have a feeling I'm gonna have less scathing things said about in the comments.
Well, that's just
than
obvious
you.
looking at the show's average score. that could be. You don't need to be a future predictor
How
to
does
see
it
that
feel
one.
being the contrarian?
Back in the day, my YouTube channel was all about being contrarian, and I tried to stop it, but maybe it really is just in my veins.
The true. There's a little. I guess there's a little bit of Digibro in everyone, huh?
Crying.
Well, if you enjoyed this episode of the podcast, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, check out all the links down in the description for the socials and whatnot. This has been Castaway Anime. I'm Neon Manta,
And I'm Crunchy Bagels.
and you'll see us next time.